Cool.
stay for.
Yeah.
But she does, she'll go read them.
Good.
The question is, she didn't call you, you know. To read things.
Yeah, right.
So. Great.
It's 30, and I call this meeting to order, so let's all stand for the pledge of the allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first thing on the agenda is roll call. Amanda.
Mayor Barker,
Present.
Trustee Knutson,
Present.
Trustee Valentine,
Here.
Trustee Stetler, Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Markle, Trustee Weber,
All right, we have a quorum and we can continue. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would like to make a notation that the I codes that are on the agenda were not agendized properly. And so we are going to we will have a discussion on them tonight, that they need to be held as a public hearing. So we can work out the kinks in the whole thing tonight with our discussion, and then we will have this public hearing at the next meeting and pass them. Or not, as the case may be. Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Next thing is announcement. I would like to make an announcement that we have two members of the advanced audiovisual class from Northport High School here, and they are videotaping. They are helping me make a short video for the state. Oh, I missed it. It's a SIPA program. Anyhow, we got a $6,500 grant from the state to upgrade our audiovisual equipment in the room. And what we have asked is them to come and help us make the short video showing where our problems are so that the state knows. And so our two students are Clara Pena and Aiden Kinzer. So let's give them a warm welcome. And thank them for their help. All right, the next thing on our agenda is our, well, I was going to go ahead and do the town administrator finalists. So we do have three finalists, and it is Evan Bolt and Guy Patterson and Melissa. You have Algar. Okay, thank you, because I've never really gotten that one. And in part of our process, we're going to have several panels that people will be taking part in as part of this, and one is a community leader panel. And so if you have an interest in taking part in the community leaders panel, so we're going to have approximately 6 to 8 community leaders that will be taking part in the interview process for our three finalists. If you have an interest in taking part in this panel, please email or send a letter to Paige Smith. She will be receiving those, and then we will make a decision on who will be on that panel. All right, Mr. Knudsen, did you also have an announcement?
Yes, Joe Brewer, who specializes in permaculture and regenerative agriculture, was here in town about a week and a half ago. He exposed a lot of us that went to his seminar to a way to manage the commons so that we as people get along a lot better. Eleanor Ostrom was a Nobel Peace Prize winner in 2009. So I just did a flip chart with some of the principles for those of you that may be interested, but she's worth looking up and it was very inspiring. Thank you.
Any other announcements? Yes.
Could I just say, if you want to email me on page s@townofpaonia.com. PAIGES @townofpaonia.com.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is recognition of visitors and guests. I'd like to welcome everyone. We are pleased to have you in attendance this evening. It's a great to have a nice, happy crowd out there. We welcome your comments, questions, and suggestions. To address the board, please raise your hand and wait to be called on by the mayor. Then come to the podium and state your name and the street on which you live. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function to be recognized. I don't see anyone on the phone, so we're going to let that go. All comments, but
I just wanted to ask, a community member mentioned that when someone's addressing the board, they're standing with their back to the audience. And I'm wondering if it'd be okay if we could move that podium to the side so that people in the audience aren't just looking at their back, but can actually see them a bit. Okay, thank you.
so all comments should be addressed to the mayor only and be no longer than 3 minutes. You may speak once on each agenda item. It will help the board hear and understand your comments if they are clear, concise, and respectful. Please present factual information. Personal attacks of any kind are not in order, as well as derogatory or demeaning statements about anyone. Speaking without being recognized by the chair or speaking on topics not related to the agenda item being discussed, except during the public comment period. Questions or comments to the staff or board will not be answered during the meeting, but addressed later. Until you are called upon by the mayor, please be respectful of those around you and those who have the floor by remaining silent. Please take any side conversations out of the room. So who would like to address the board on a topic that is not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on with the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Yes, Ms. Smith?
I have some comments on the September 8th
Yes.
meeting minutes, the June 3rd, August 17th, November 10th. And I have page numbers so everybody can follow along. But my first comment is on September 8th meeting minutes on page 34. And my comment is that it would really help the readability of this set of minutes if the issues under new business were numbered, so you could tell where one topic starts and the other one and where the next one ends. It's very difficult to get through this for me, and I was at the meeting. And the other thing I'd like to do is on page 35. I'm sorry, and 34, it's the bottom of 34. I just wanted to start with some adding of numbering to identify the different new businesses. And on page 35, there was a motion made. However, the motion itself is not described. And it had to do with the ordinance changing of the meeting minutes or our meetings from Thursdays to Tuesdays. And because it's not numbered, I can't tell you exactly which line this is on. But motion made by trustee Weber, seconded by trustee Knutson. However, it doesn't say what the motion is. So if we could include the topic of the motion. That it was changing from Thursdays to Tuesdays.
Now, wait, the motion is there. Trustee Weber made a motion, seconded by trustee Knutson, to rescind the vote to replace the tank and instead
No.
to reline the current.
You're in a different place, I think.
You're page 35.
Well, no, and I'm referring to in the middle of the page. You have to go down, let's say, and this is why I'm having a hard time reading this and talking about it because nothing's numbered to give me an identifier. But if you go down to about the middle of the page, it's under, if you look at the top of draft, The first line along the draft watermark, look at the second line. It says motion made by trustee Weber and seconded by trustee Knudsen.
To adopt resolution 12/2022.
I don't even see that. I don't think we're even looking at the same thing. No,
All right,
anyway, mostly if we could just have, because nobody knows what's in a resolution, 10, 20, 22. There's no title. To me, these minutes are intended so people can go back and see what happened. And I cannot tell what happened here because I don't know any topic that we voted on.
I would suggest that you take these, write up your suggestions and submit them to Amanda so that
Okay.
you can make changes. So
Right.
it's a
Okay.
little confusing.
Okay, right, yeah, and the way this is structured is even more confusing because I can't even direct you to a line to look at.
Okay,
And Davis.
I noticed, and since, trustee Markle is with us, there was a motion made and it shows him as voting aye and also voting nay on the same motion.
okay.
So that needs to be cleared up.
All right, so I would suggest, again, take all your suggestions, make them in writing, submit them to Amanda,
Okay,
and then she can make the changes.
gotcha.
And so then if we were to approve this, it would be to approve the minutes with the changes suggested.
If, like I said, I have proposed changes on 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of minutes.
Okay,
Do you want to identify those as needing changes
yeah. we
in
can
the
make-
motion?
Yes.
And then I'll provide my comments to Amanda.
Yes, yeah,
So what I would suggest is when you make the motion, that you make a motion to approve the minutes authorizing Paige Smith to work with Amanda on some clarifying edits.
okay,
So it's very clear that you authorized.
okay, so then shall we restate the motion?
Well, we'll just do an amendment.
Okay,
I moved to amend the motion to approve the consent agenda with Paige working with Amanda and clarifying these.
okay. All right. Discussion from the board on that? Discussion from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Markle.
yeah, in the future, if, I guess it's Sam doing the preparation of the minutes now. If Sam would like assistance with, doing that preparation, by using the transcription service that I have set up, I'd be more than happy to, show her how to use it or, prepare it for her so that, we can get more, thorough minutes that are more precise.
Okay, well, I think we have voted on this. Who are all the ayes? After we're voting. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right,
I'd like to thank the staff for catching us up on our history. That's quite a bit of work.
that's a lot of work. Okay, so back to the main motions. Well, as long as you're working with her, I don't think you need to do all of that into the motion. All right, back to the main motion to accept the consent agenda with Ms. Smith working with Amanda, make the necessary changes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
All right, that motion passed. Next, we're moving on to staff reports.
Could I make,
No.
I just didn't hear, there was it went so quickly, I didn't get a chance. I just came to make a statement at some point,
Well, that was at recognition of community and guests.
and it was a very tiny little spot.
Well, I'm sorry.
So
That
nobody's got up and asked a question or made a statement at all.
there is a part of our agenda, which is reserved for community and guests. And you are allowed to speak on anything you wish to speak on at that point in time.
I didn't hear, sorry.
And I apologize that you did not hear. And that is part of our acoustics problem in this building.
It is a big problem.
Right, and that's why we have students here. So I will make an exception this time. But from now on, if you wish to address the board on something that is not in the agenda, you need to speak up during that portion of the agenda, make your comment.
I get it. I mean, I understand. I just didn't hear. I was trying to get a clarification. It seems so short. I'm Margaret Hollander. I live at 1018 3rd Street. And my concern is about building permits. I have talked to people recently who have always had to have a permit to build in town, anything. It was much more severe. I've spoken on this before. But now it just seems to be pretty open that anybody can do anything, and I don't get it. The house next door could turn into a hotel before they make a building permit present in the front window. So I'm disturbed about it, and I just want it on record that I'm concerned, and I think everybody should be treated the same way, and that is fairness for our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Weber.
This is the house in the 1000 block, 3rd Street.
Yeah.
I checked on that, a building permit has been issued.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Mr. Weber, I'd like to remind you that we are not doing a back and forth during this, and that her questions would be answered. And if you are welcome to email her after the meeting and clarify whatever you would like to clarify. All right, moving on. Staff report. Sorry.
So let's go through what I know about so far, which is not everything. Or even maybe even 50% of it. So I met with department heads on the first morning. I think we are going to meet a second time next week via Zoom and went over the needs that they have. And I worked with Mary and the Public Works crew on some essential water and sewer improvements. I think there's some issues with how we're going to, how should I say this? The timeline of rolling out this planned 2 million gallon tank lining. So we are working with JDS Hydro on some strategy for that, because there's some issues about, how you keep that tank empty and where you put the water in the meantime. So we're working on that. If any questions come up, we don't have the answers yet, but we're working. And as you know, Mary's working on the state revolving loan fund grant. And basically, we've had a really good discussion. We're going to keep that discussion going about what needs to be done. And I mentioned to me before that you have some capital improvements that need to be pulled together and prioritized with the board. And I've been going through those reports so they can pull that information out. I got the master engineering agreements from JDS Hydro and SGM. JDS Hydro does have a conflict because they're under contract with DOLA to do this evaluation that you are already working on. So they can't work on anything that conflicts with that report that DOLA is contracted for, but they can work with us on some of the other issues, and they've spelled that out in a need. And then the attorney is going through those contracts, and we're getting those to the point that we can bring them to you for approval. So you're all familiar with what a master agreement is. Let's see, Cindy and I met with police chief to talk about what needs to be done to pave the way for him to hire 2 vacancies, and I think he's moving forward with that. And then also a plan to purchase and outfit vehicles, and I think you're talking about that at this meeting. On the CDOT intersection grant, that grant has not been contracted for yet. So there's not a whole lot we can do with that grant, except that we can go ahead and work on a quit claim between the school and the town for the parcel that the school owns, and that will help them because I think they're planning on selling the rest of the property, not clean that up. Until you have a contract, which CDOT is telling me they're way behind, and it's going to be February or March before you have a signed contract. You cannot do any work that will be reimbursed. So I know that's scheduled than you wanted, but I'm glad I called them because I didn't quite understand all that. And there are a lot of hoops to jump through. with CDOT even after you got the contract signed. And I'm sure your permanent administrator will come up to speed on all of that with CDOT. And then we did an amendment on our DOLA Department of Housing grant. And sent it in. Their concern was in the original grant that we were asking, or the town was asking for a comprehensive housing study. And they were uncomfortable doing a comprehensive housing study when the water tap moratorium is still on, because their concern was, and this is a real concern for those of us that are aware of the affordable housing issue, is so much changes in a year or two that by the time that issue's been resolved, the whole affordable housing study may be different. So we restructured it so it's like a preliminary one, so that you can locate possible sites for affordable housing and be able to feed into your comp plan and do your water and sewer planning. And you know, they were happy with that. So Mary and I worked on that, and that went in. There's been a lot of questions about a building permit with Mr. Zimmer. That building permit, we've been working on with Mr. Reardon, and all of the issues that I heard are addressed. So it's totally aware of the situation, and we're moving forward. Let's see, and we've also got working with some people on the Hive building. We're waiting for complete plans, and then we'll do a zoning review and that building permit process. But the application so far is not complete. And today I met with all the trustees, and it was not all the trustees. I didn't meet with Rick, and I didn't meet with Thomas because he's on the road. We didn't do it via Zoom, but I'm going to set up a time with Thomas and Rick. It was very helpful to me to find out where everybody was at and what the concerns are, and to think through some options. So I'll be presenting a report to you about that without names. So I just want to summarize kind of where I see the board is aligned on everything about things that you want to work on and what concerns you have. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, questions for town administrators?
Thanks.
All right. Next, we have Ms. Jones.
I submitted a written report and I take questions if you have any.
Okay, questions for our finance director? Yes.
Could you just describe what is a SAM? SAMS?
SAMS is the new system management that allows us to get federal grants. We have to have a SAMS
Account and number to get grants. There's a DUNS, there's a SAMS, there's a FIPS. They have 4 different numbers you have to have now to get it. And you have to update them every year.
I just wanted to thank Cindy for putting it at the bottom of her report. She's got the grant updates, which lists 4 grants that we have received and are working with. And I just appreciate that. And it would be nice to keep that going, because it's nice to see where the grants are in one place rather than in the spreadsheets that are hard to decipher for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor.
Oh, Thomas, thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering regarding the grants, if we could get documentation about the SIPA sound system grant, like what we can actually use it for, limitations or administration of it. And I understand that you've also solicited an outside group to produce a video about the use of those funds. And I was wondering if you could inform the rest of the board as to, or I guess John and I, as we've been charged with dispensing that grant, as the details of that agreement.
It's just all I've asked the high school students to help me make the short video that I had emailed you about making. They're just going to help us make the video so that SIPA can put it up on their website.
Right. We don't. Okay, I take it offline, I suppose. I'll follow up with you in email. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the finance director? All right, seeing none, next on the agenda is the public hearing about declaring the decision to opt out of the family program. So I am going to open the hearing. So this is on resolution 22-13. Declaration or declaring the decision to opt out of the family program. So the whole thing was in our packets. This is a program that was passed by the state, allowing extra leave for families, and the Colorado Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Program. So I'm sure we have read this. Is there anything you would like to add about your knowledge of this at all, Ms. Kuzma? Because I don't have anything to add except what's in the packet.
Yeah, did you have a discussion whether you wanted to opt in or not? No, okay, that might be something you want to have.
Well, we will do that after. I mean, we're supposed to have a staff presentation and an applicant presentation, and we have no.
Okay, I wasn't.
Right, so we have, no staff and no applicant, so it's kind of whatever we've had in the past. So, in questions, since we have no knowledgeable people here. So I would say, unless the board wants to discuss now, we can see if anyone in the public would like to ask questions or make comments about this. Yes.
I have a question. Cindy, I think maybe you can answer it perhaps, but when this came in front of us 2 meetings ago, one of the requirements was the employees had to be canvassed as to how they felt about it. Employees were canvassed that they would be fine with the town not adopting the family program. Okay, so maybe that was, Corinne made it sound like she would do that, so I don't know if that was done. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about is the second whereas. Where the employees are allowed to accrue sick leave and carry unused sick leave from 1 year to the next to a maximum of 18 weeks of paid leave. And this paid leave is not provided when they leave, when they break service with the town of Paonia. Like we were talking today about, there are 4 people left that haven't, there was an older program created for folks to have kind of a bank of 240 sick leave hours that they could work from. This is not that. Correct. This is really more of a benefit to the employees that they can accrue that. They don't lose their sick leave year after year. They can accrue it and use it if they have some terrible disaster, but they cannot be paid for it when they leave service with the town of Paonia. And I just want to, and that is correct.
I don't have an answer. I don't know that.
Oh, you don't?
I don't know anything about this.
Oh,
Maybe this is something, Nick, do you have any information about this law that you can help shed some light on it for us?
Yeah, and I'd be happy to answer Paige's specific question first. If you could repeat it, Paige. I'm having a little trouble hearing you guys tonight.
And were you referring to my question as to whether the employees have been canvassed or the second whereas in the resolution?
I did hear about the canvassing of the employees, and the law doesn't specifically require any sort of canvass prior to this, but employees should have the opportunity to speak during the public hearing. So that is, there's not necessarily needing to be a canvass specifically where employees have the chance to submit written comments, for example. The hearing would suffice for that if employees receive notice. Technically, employees are deemed to have received notice just by virtue of the packet being published. But if the board did want to give an additional opportunity for Paonia employees to be heard and to ensure that they had actual notice that this discussion was being had, the hearing could be continued to ensure that notice. So that's one thing the board might consider. And then Paige, your second question was?
It was the second whereas about paid, employees and their ability to carry over unused sick leave. And I don't know that that's something you would know the answer to, but it's just something I
yeah.
wasn't aware of in terms of a benefits policy.
Yeah, and I assume that that would be in Paonia's personnel guidelines. Does anyone know the answer to that?
I have the personnel guidelines right here.
Okay. Yeah, I have not
But
reviewed
you
those.
don't.
Well,
That's being looked at.
Yes, Mr. Wilbur?
So, what we already providing our employees is more generous than family, and that's why we're paying it out. There's no reason for us to go to a lower standard than the good stuff we're already doing for our employees.
Yes.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, we went from sick leave to a paid time off program. I saw that's much more structured than paying sick leave when people leave, so they don't get that. But we did ask as a board that employees be polled about this because we wanted to know how they felt about it, because this is something that impacts them. And the major impact on our employee is without this benefit, if they change jobs, they have no more protection. If they decide to enroll in it and then they change jobs, that goes with them to a new job. So that would be the only advantage for an employee. The fact that we're more generous than what the program is a boon to them. Our decision is whether we want to pay the 0.45% salary through the course of the year to subsidize the program. Yeah. And until, like, we have no proof that they have been notified either. And that's required by law because we have more than 10 employees. So I would suggest that we consider tabling this until we know that the employees have been notified, because that is required. And I don't think having it in the packet is enough. That's my own opinion.
So what your personnel manual says is that you've switched to a paid time off instead of sick and vacation, and you pay out at separation up to 240 hours that have not been used.
That's prior sick leave, that's gonna.
That says that on PTO too. On separation. This is PTO. This is, you're right on prior sick leave, but it also says it on PTO.
And the other thing is employees, even if we opt out of this, the employees can themselves enroll in this. We are just not contributing anything. Yeah, they can contribute on their own. So you want to make a motion to continue?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the public hearing.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion from the board?
The discussion I have is we are supposed to let the state know by the end of the year.
And we have another meeting,
Okay.
so we can put this on the December 14th meeting and continue until then. And make a decision and let the state know.
Okay, I would like to amend the motion
Yes.
to ask staff to canvass all employees.
Well, I think you would need to ask.
Right.
This is my, or one of the other, maybe Sam.
I can organize.
Okay,
But I'm just wondering if we need to do that in the motion, because that's
No.
why we're waiting. Make sure that they are polled.
Second amendment.
I
okay.
just think we should be clear.
Anything from the public on having Ms. Kuzmeyer poll the employee? All right, all in favor of the amendment? You have, okay, all in favor, any more discussion on continuing this until the next meeting? Anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this is continued until the next meeting. All right, next is unfinished business and police department vehicle purchase. So we did pass back on one of our early budget sessions that the police could purchase a vehicle in the 2022 budget. So we have been provided with numerous,
Are those multiple copies for us?
oh, no, these are multiple quotes.
Okay.
That came in as a late email.
Oh, no, I read it.
Pick up.
There aren't, I don't know if there are any more copies in the back.
Were there some on the table?
There were,
Do you like one?
Well, I'll just open up my email.
okay. So there are numerous ones, and I think what we're looking for tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cindy, is that we're looking for a maximum amount that the police department can spend on this vehicle. So the prior approval has already been made, but they can go ahead and make this purchase. We just need to put a cap on how much they can spend.
So it looked like that they're in the mid to high forties. For
That's
price.
160.
You think 50 is okay? You think we need like 55 for this margin?
I think, yeah. maybe
Because things are
not.
changing.
Yeah.
Got any comment on that, Cindy?
So there's just to be clear, there's the purchase of the vehicle, and then you need to also include additional funds to outfit the vehicle. So once they purchase the vehicle, we'll have to send it to a company to have it outfitted. And so that there was 2 quotes for that. There's only 3 companies that do that. And we're still working to get a bid for the 3rd one. But what we're looking for is a maximum for the vehicle complete.
And
And we have it in the budget for 55,000. And my suggestion is to allow to, with these purchases, it will come out right, just short of 55.
Okay, so I just want to make a motion then to have the vehicle purchase of 55,000.
if that includes the outfitting,
That's what she said.
okay. Do I have a second? All right, further discussion from the board?
I just had kind of a silly question, looking at all the add-ons. So this is an unmarked vehicle, but the add-ons make it look like it becomes a marked vehicle.
It isn't.
But it's supposed to be unmarked so that they don't have to wear their uniforms in it. So is this
It's
crossing the,
It is still an unmarked vehicle, but an unmarked vehicle still has to have certain things on it.
like the lights on top?
And then the
Oh, they're
whole
not.
interior panel,
Like bar in front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, behind the grill.
they change out all the entire, the panel on the front, if that all changes.
But it still meets the requirements of an unmarked vehicle, which was the whole point in buying this.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Any further discussion from the board?
We would be looking at this again for the purchasing policy before it's actually finally approved.
Oh, no, this is the approval for the purchasing policy, because if he can't just go and buy the vehicle, we're not going to get a vehicle, because these vehicles, of all of these that we gave you, most of them are sold already. So if he needs a blanket approval for 55,000, so he can go buy the vehicle.
Is,
Yes, Thomas.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody that the last time we discussed this, we ended up having a motion to have a policy discussion regarding vehicle replacement. I think it was supposed to be before January. Does anybody recall that date?
Yeah, I do not remember that name. Yes, Mr. Weber.
That would typically go to public safety for review. Right, Tom?
I don't recall. I think it was the whole board. I'm pretty sure it was the board discussion regarding all vehicle, not just public safety vehicles, but trash trucks, like all of them, as I recall. And I think it was before January, but I don't have it on me.
And I don't think that there is a committee right now that would adequately serve that purpose. We used to have GAPS committee, we didn't go to GAPS, but
Yeah, it should be the whole board.
so, yeah, I don't have the date on that. Any further discussion from the board? Here. Yes.
I don't think $55,000 is gonna be enough. It's not gonna be enough. Because just the add-on is 10,000. I mean, minimum of what we're seeing.
Right, and vehicles, like 60,000.
Yeah, so 55 is not enough money.
So would you like to amend the motion?
I'm just thinking, let me just giggle a minute at our bad math. Yes, I think we need to amend the motion.
Okay.
Because, Mary, you have the paper copies
Yeah,
in front of you. Could you just look real quick? I didn't print all this out.
yeah,
It seems like the vehicle is going from, oh, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. They're going, well, we don't know which ones are gone at this point. What's the most expensive one?
50,000, just over 50,000.
I just think you have to go at least 62. I don't like it, but to make it happen.
Well, want to make that
I'm gonna
amendment?
rob Peter to pay Paul.
Want to make that amendment?
I'll amend the motion that the maximum to be spent is. Well, hang on. Have anybody looked at these enough to know if 62,000
It's
is gonna be?
50,045.
Say it again,
50045.
is the most expensive? Right. Okay. And let's go with 60,500. And then the motion for that.
Okay, do I have a second on that? Any further discussion on making it 60,500? Okay. Anything from the public? All right. all in
There's one in the
favor?
back.
Oh, I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
There's two.
Oh, Sue, okay.
Technically on the motion, but I was just wondering if Christina Patterson, if there was like some sort of 5-year plan that you guys have seen from the police department with the budget, with the, that's the badge.
Just on the amendment of the motion to make it 60,500.
Okay, which would help within this motion to understand what's happening in the next 5 years and 10 years with this, all that. Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
You made the
Oh,
comment,
you need to come up here. Thank you.
you made the comment of you would have to rob Peter to pay Paul. Well, what Peter's gonna get robbed to pay Paul?
I
No,
can't, I'm
sorry, we're not going to have a discussion. All right. So anything else from the public?
Simple question.
I was just curious if we are going to be increasing.
Morgan, what's your name?
Oh, my name's Morgan McInnes. I live on Main Avenue.
Okay,
My question is if we're going to be increasing the budget for this vehicle, I'd be curious about where within the overall budget or the police budget that extra money is coming from. Yeah. Thanks.
thank you. There reserves. Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. All in favor of making the maximum purchase price 60,500? All in favor of making the maximum price $60,500 for the police vehicle fully up?
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. All right, well then, I guess the amendment pretty much covered the motion, but we can vote on it again. All in favor of authorizing the purchase of a police vehicle fully outfitted at maximum of $60,500.
All right.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. All right, next is ordinance 2209, amendment to chapter 18 of the municipal code and adopting the 2018 I codes. As I said, we cannot pass this tonight, but we can definitely have the discussion on it. Included in your packet, it was a long discussion. And Paige Smith spent lots of time going through the I codes and making changes to them. And then her changes were commented upon by Dan Reardon. And then I took all of that and cleaned it all up and put a final version in. So I would suggest that instead of going through each and every single one of the suggestions, that if there are any objections to the suggestions made, that the board speak up on those. Yeah.
so I went back through it, and just so everyone understands, I went into here just to add some information with each entry so the reader would know what the topic was that was being discussed with the building codes. That's essentially what I did, was a cleanup and have it match our ordinance, but I made a couple suggestions. And one of them is in two different places, on page 118 and on page 122 with regard to foundations. And I'll get you to 118 first. So it looked like the version we have in front of us incorporated a lot of the new language I had proposed, but I question that this new language I proposed should stay. At the top of page 118, I had suggested adding, well, let me just read, all foundations designs submitted for habitable structures or additions to habitable structures excluding patio covers and carports shall be site-specific, stamped and signed by an engineer registered in the state of Colorado. I had added new language that said the building official has the right to waive the requirement when the code official finds that the proposed design is satisfactory and complies with the intent of the provisions of this code. That is something they do in Delta, but I thought Dan Reardon came back with some very compelling reasons not to waive having an engineered structure on a foundation. And I personally, reading his reasoning, I don't think we should have that provision in there for flexibility in this case. And let me just tell you, one of the things that Dan wrote back was, he said, your call, but you will find that there will then be pressure from the public for the building official to exempt most of the foundations. Then the town is acting as an authority on soil evaluations and foundation designs. And the second reason that he gave to me was, let's see. Oh, agreed. As stated above, I don't recommend getting rid of the engineering requirement. I've had discussions with many building officials who said if you can get engineering as a requirement, you really don't want to rescind that. And there was a third entry in here that Dan, and correct me, I didn't print it out, but it had to do with drainage. I was asking about drainage requirements for a residential building. And essentially, normally you don't require that in a residential building. And he said, if you have an engineered foundation, any drainage issues are addressed by having that foundation engineered. There were three compelling reasons from our building official that I would like to recommend we do not adopt that new language.
So is that not?
It is in here.
No, it isn't here. So
It's you'll see it's in underline on the top of page 118.
So we can keep that.
Actually, get rid of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
go back to the original.
Go back to the original.
And here's the last thing.
Sure.
So did we have in there that a derrick is not exempted from building permits?
Where? What? What?
It's where? It is oil derricks are exempted from building permits.
That one out on Dan's suggestion.
Well, he said it's the reason it's there is because they wouldn't get a building permit.
Right.
Is it gonna be deleted?
I think I went with Dan's thing on that.
And what it means is that if somebody wanted to put an oil derrick in the middle of town, they would not need a building permit to build it. Seems pretty nonsensical to me that they would. So anyway, I just asked to be removed and I think it was removed because obviously
Yeah, I think I did.
an oil derrick in the middle of town park will never happen. And if it does, the SEC, Oil and Gas Conservation Commission would have a lot to say about it.
And I think we would do many things to make sure that didn't.
Yes. That's all I have on this.
Okay.
And thank you, Dan, for
Yeah.
going through it.
Yeah,
So, Dan, I have a question for you. You made a plea to the board back when that we not go wild with the building code, that we stick with what's being done in the surrounding communities so that there's some consonants across all the communities. Do you feel that what we have now in front of us is actually suitable?
I do, absolutely.
Thank you.
I've helped the town of Telluride, the town of Ridgeway, Cedar Ridge, Orchard City, Montrose, Hotchkiss all adopt 2018 codes. I was part of the process, and this is very similar to this. And it's good for our community. And if you don't mind me just adding to that, what you'll see in the amendment is to adopt some of the appendix chapters for straw bale and clay construction. And then there's a section in the front of the code that says alternative materials and designs. So it's not all inclusive, and the building code recognizes there are more than these few ways of building a structure, and we need to be open to that. And I certainly support that. I think it's good for the community, it's good for the environment, and the day that I think I know everything, or anybody here thinks we know all the answers, it's the day I should quit, because there's new ways to do things all the time, and we need to be open to it. So the code addresses that, and I think the way we amended it and proposing to adopt it is very good and open to discussion to the public.
Now, Rick Stelter did call me today and asked the thing about the sprinklers. He was adamant that we do keep sprinklers in nursing homes, and that we insist that there are sprinklers placed in the what? Yeah, care facilities, yes, and that sprinklers should be placed in the ground floor of commercial buildings when there are residences above.
That's already in there.
Okay.
So the IRC has some sections in there about sprinklers, and we've amended it to say, no, when you're building a single family dwelling or duplex, we're not going to require that in this community. And I think that's the right call. All the other things are in the IBC,
Okay.
the building code, and the building code says when you have an R occupancy, which is any kind of residential occupancy, a single family dwelling, a hotel, apartments, or anything like that, in a mixed use building, the entire building must be sprinkled.
Okay.
So it's already in there, and that's a good call. The things that we've taken out are really for the single family dwellings and duplexes. And for good reason. I think not only the cost, but just our water supply alone. I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to adopt things that we can't enforce. So we'll wade into that later. And you know what? I won't go any further on it, but we'll cover it.
All right. All right, any comments from the public on the IBC, the adoption of the I codes? What was in that? Yes. Paige?
On page 125. Could you, when you redo this, could you just spell out NEC as a national electrical code? It's under BB subsection 3. And I just say that because it's not really talked about anywhere else. And somebody like me might be reading this and I wouldn't know what the NEC is. So if you could spell out the acronym, page 125.
125. Where is it?
It's on the bottom of the page, under subsection BB.
And it's supposed to be what?
National Electrical Code.
Thank you. I can do that.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? Anything from the public? All right.
I do have one last thing
Yeah,
to
please.
say. In here, we talked about the violation fees and other things that are all according to resolution. And our resolution right now, we have a fee table, but it does not address all of those things. So I think it's very important that we update that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, yes. All right. Do you need a motion for that resolution?
Which one?
Yeah, this will come back next
Okay.
time as in the proper format so that we can pass it correctly. All right, next is the street closure change of ordinance recommendation. So our streets committee has dutifully gone through the ordinance and made changes, and we have the red line copy in our packets. And we do have a few things to talk about in all of that. have some decisions to make, for example. All right, well, with Trustee Markle and Trustee Smith, would you like to comment about what decisions you would like the board to make on this?
Yes.
Valentine.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's on her.
I guess it's me. So, yeah, the changes are pretty basic. The primary considerations that the board still remain for the board are section F. This is on page 167 of the packet. Section F is placeholder language. I'm not sure if it would be better for us or the town manager or interim administrator or final administrator or attorney to provide this language, or maybe CRSA themselves. But there was some input from an event organizer at our meeting that the event will still probably want to carry their own insurance if we can have them covered under CRSA, so much the better. I think the terms are probably better, which is why this is here, but the precise language, I really don't know what we want to do with that. Beyond that, we need to figure out section L. John and I and some of the public feel that it would be prudent to have a restriction on the number of times, say that any individual street can be closed for a certain time period or within a certain time period, so that you don't end up with an event that closes the street every week, or for example. But we're not sure exactly what would be appropriate, so that would be a good point of discussion for the board. And beyond that, I don't think there were any really serious decisions to be made.
Okay. So Kim, first I would like to ask Nick about the CRSA policy. What are your opinions about, would it be better to insert our own language in there or just rely on CRSA, or what do you think?
Well, I think because CRSA was the one who said that the town's policy could cover special events, it might behoove the town to have CRSA prepare that language, since they potentially are the one making the representation that the town does indeed do that. I would be happy to work with CRSA though, to see if they have some language and then vet it if the board would like me to do that.
So the way it works with CRSA is they don't cover special events blanket. You buy a rider for the special event. And from what I read here, this says that the town would get the rider, but the special event would have to pay for the cost of the rider. They're not very expensive, but that's what I'm reading here. Am I reading this wrong?
I don't have the language in front of me, so
To me, it's appropriate. What they're saying is town will get the rider, the event will cover the cost of it. Does that work?
Yeah, that's Leslie, thank you for clarifying that. I was having a difficult time interpreting the language, but I agree with you that if CRSA is going to provide the rider, it would be certainly appropriate to have the event holder pay for the cost.
So we can just insert that language then in here?
Well, that's what I'm reading here. It says replace requiring to provide required information and pay. So that they would provide the required information CRSA needs, and that they would reimburse the town for the cost of the rider. That's what to me, I'm seeing. Maybe I'm reading this. What does it want to feel about?
Yeah, Mr. Knutson.
Well, we have another policy that's coming up, and we're not making the same requirements with the flag policy. We're telling them to go out and get their own liability. And I know in the past, the events we've had like Mountain Harvest, Cherry Days, BMW, they all have to provide their own. So it seems like all of a sudden we're carving out an exception from the way we typically do business because of this. And so maybe at the risk of being a 180 flip-flopper, it seems like being consistent with the other policies we have, where if you have a special event or a street closure, you get your policy and give us a plan for policy. So I'd kind of advocate that we stay consistent on it.
Yeah, Mr.
I
Weber.
agree with Dave on that, and it's, we're kind of pushing the insurance hassle off to staff to deal with. Does this rider have to be done for each special event, or say now you're asking, what if we forget to do the rider and something goes wrong at the event, then we're stuck with it. I say, if they're gonna have a special event, let them carry the liability insurance.
Okay, well, you want to make a motion for that?
I'd like to make well, I'd like to hear what the streets committee, what their decision, because they may have had input.
Not really, no.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we being consistent and require the applicant to provide proof of general liability that's consistent with our other policies.
Okay, second, all right, any discussion from the board? All right, anything from the public on the event holder providing the insurance for the event? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes. All right. So then the second part is the number of street closures in a time period.
The thinking on that or last was we had this public input meeting and there was concern. But when you try to figure out a scheme to get that to work, it's difficult. So there's another way to deal with it. And that is that I should back up a little bit. Most of us have in mind closing Grand Street or, you know, some important main thoroughfare. But there are barbecues and sort of block parties that happen too. And so that was behind some of the concern. If there are 5 or 6 or 10 closures for every little birthday party and all that, it gets to be cumbersome. Back to the main point, trying to second guess exactly what sort of frequency and interval, some kind of formula for making that work is difficult. It depends on the street, it depends on how many times already, depends on the season. So we threw it back in the board's court.
Yes, Mr.
So I had made the suggestion that, first of all, in what is proposed in M, right now, I really would like the trustees to not become the arbiters of these things. It just needs to be much clearer what people can propose and not put us in the position of having the for us and against us. You know, let's just make it clear what you can do. So what I had proposed in the comments I sent was that no event could exceed 10 hours and no event, regardless of the time, could be held 2 consecutive days. Which means you can have a 10-hour day on Saturday. You can't close the street on Sunday. You could close it on Thursday. You could close it on Friday and Sunday, but no 2 consecutive days. And to me, it's generous to say 10 hours, 10 hours or less. So that was my suggestion. But that negates saying how many times you can allow to be closed at a time. Because remember, I don't think you're going to have that many people wanting to close their streets all that time because they have to get everybody to agree to it. And even if you're going to close your residential street, the people on that street have to agree to you shutting the street to some extent. There is no threshold on how many people have to agree or disagree. I had offered up a suggestion for that, but it wasn't taken. But I just don't think it'll be a free for all, just because that many people aren't going to do it potentially throughout the summer. But anyway, that was my suggestion. To just keep it clean and everybody knows what they can do and get rid of M. 5 hours, 10 hours on Sunday. And if something falls outside of that, we get to deal with it. I do not think any board should have to deal with all the consternation and the vitriol between people about these events. It's just not a good use of our time or the public's time when we're supposed to be serving you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Paige in that having the board be able to change the law on the fly is not a good idea because essentially it makes the laws non-functional. Or it can just change anything at will. And we should also not burden the board with things that should be done at an administrative level. The 5 hours and 10 hours that were in the original motion or the original ordinance, those came about from negotiation with business owners as well as people that wanted special events. So I like the original numbers because we did do a lot of work on them back in the early 2000s, which is when this came about. And I agree with Paige that if we do take out the board improvement part, we don't have to worry about L, which is John's right. I couldn't cook up a formula for that, John.
Well, and I would say that I agree that we should get the board out of it. And I think we ought to just set times. However, this is not the early 2000s. We have been through COVID and COVID has wrought many changes and had opened up new business models that weren't there before. And having street fairs and street closures, especially in small towns, has made a big difference and is becoming part of the life of the small town. And so to say that a 5 hours when we have the people have come to us and said, you cannot set up an event in 5 hours. You have to have 8 to 10 hours to be able to set up the event, run the event, and then break the event down. So 5 hours is just not a reasonable time to have an event. Yeah, I agree. But let me finish saying what I need to say before Thomas speaks. So I would say, make it 10 hours. That the town administrator can approve street closures not to exceed 10 hours. Except on Sundays and state recognized holidays where a closure may occur for up to 12 hours. Mr. Mark.
Thanks. So a couple of points of clarification. We have part L and part M, which are distinct. And part M, I guess, was discussed in our previous meetings, as well as the special meeting that John and I hosted. And the impetus for adding the board input is because it doesn't exist now. And there is not an exception. There is no process for somebody who wants to do something that is longer than that, which was the point of contention for all this trouble. So I think that allowing the board to make this exception, like having it written in ordinance that just as we can have special review for zoning uses or whatever, whatever type of decisions that we need to make, allowing us to make that decision in ordinance means that these type of things can happen. Whereas if the limit is 10 hours in 2 days, nothing that is more than 10 hours or 2 days can happen. And when somebody says, hey, we want to do this, either we can break the law again or we can have it written. So that was the thinking for this. And if that's how if you guys want to do, obviously, whatever the board wants to do, it's up to us. But I recommend that in order to accommodate the desires of the public, we leave ourselves the option to make exceptions. And that is a completely separate matter from the part L. The thinking in part L was more of like not just consecutive days, say, but no more than, for example, 3 times in a quarter, so that rather than having a street closure like separate events that close a street every weekend for a month, we say, no, we're not going to do it 3 weekends in a month, 4 weekends in a month, whatever. So rather than limiting the individual event, it would limit subsequent events. So it would allow more normal use of streets. Regarding the notion that we have a revolution of I guess COVID has changed the way that the town works. I think that we should lean on our parks. We are blessed with excellent and amazing park space in Paonia that has served for decades as a absolutely stunning and attractive place to host events like this. And I feel like it only makes sense to continue to do that. And I know that there are crowd size considerations, mercantile considerations, and all kinds of factors in that. But I feel like using our spaces that we do have as they were intended only makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I agree with a lot of things Thomas is saying, but what I want to point out is if we were to be, say, 10 hours, the thing is, what we say here and agree on, people need to, that's what they plan for. If you can have a street closed for 10 hours, that should be plenty of time. I think it worked. But my point is, we just need to set the prescription. If they know what can be done, you plan your event accordingly. And the other thing about allowing too much flexibility that's put in our laps is we had business people downtown that were not happy that the street was going to be closed for 3 days in a row. And what has been brought to us is not, in my mind, I don't know if you all looked at the electronic form that would have to be filled out for the people that are on the street. I don't think that's adequate. There's no way of knowing. It has to be much more prescriptive so that the people on all the people on Grand Avenue have signed a form to say they agree with the closure. The problem we had was there was going to be 3 days of closure, and there were business people that weren't told, or they didn't feel like they were told, and it hurt their business for 3 days. So that is what we need to prevent, is where we get an event by event bunch of discord. If we keep it very prescriptive, you make your plan accordingly. So again, I would like to go back to the street can't be closed for any more than 10 hours. And again, and I like Thomas's that you can't have the same event or close the same street. I don't know what you meant, Thomas, that the event planners can't do it more than 3 times in a quarter, or that street can't be closed more than 3 times in a quarter. That's something to be talked about. But again, I think we need to be prescriptive. And I personally you can be up for 10 days, but it can't be 2 consecutive days. 10 hours less, but you can't do it in 2 consecutive days. Or I don't know, what's the alternative? You can close the street for 10 hours, but not more than once in a 24-hour period. I don't know if that works. But the point is, we can't make it be a free-for-all. I do not want to sit here again and have all of the consternation about shutting the street. That was unnecessary. These are public streets, and the public that uses those streets needs to have a say, and people were felt left out. And I don't feel like this proposal is giving us a very clear, concise form that the town is providing for all of the business owners, occupants to sign that they are okay with that street being closed. Except if this was prescriptive and it was limited, I don't think you would need that approval. The approval would become, you wouldn't need it, because if they knew it was only going to be closed 1 day, not 3 days in a row, I don't think the business owners would mind. Again, I'd have to hear from them. But again, put a limit on this.
Yeah, sure. Section 9, which is the no more than X times in Y time period, was meant to deal with how many times per year could a street be closed. That is the intent.
Not by an organization, but by the street.
Or
the street, not the event planners.
Or if somehow street fairs became once a month or, extremely frequent, then there might be some restriction needed. Speaking of restriction, though, I think your argument is restrictive. And there were some businesses, there were 2 in particular, that objected to the Harvest Fest, but the rest of the street, a huge number of businesses not only liked it, raved about it, but said without that, We're gonna see plywood in the windows.
But
We're gonna see businesses out of business. It's kind of like, if you know about small businesses, a lot of them will depend on 30, 40, 50% of their entire livelihood on a couple of events, you know, Christmas and back to school, whatever.
if I may.
Hang on,
Sorry.
I'm not done.
Sorry.
So, yeah, I think that argument is very restrictive. So, you know, I think we should consider that. The 5 hours, I get a sense from listening to people that are here, public input session, the 5 hours came from originally way back from evening concerts. And that makes a lot of sense, that works, but not for a street fair. And as far as lots of contention being dumped in front of the board here, there aren't that many events that would trigger the not appeal, but the requirement for an approval by the board of trustees. Probably one, maybe. So 3, you think all 3? Yeah, sure. But I just didn't have any picture in my head of constant incessant turmoil. So see, I think I clarified what we wanted to.
Mayor, do we have a motion?
No, we don't, but let Paige speak because she had.
Well, what I wanted to say is, what John is saying is true, but when we pass an ordinance, it is not for right now. It is to think about the future. And businesses change and things change. This is to make it manageable so everyone knows what's expected. Not a different legacy event gets created over time and we have a new someone. There should be no reason the board should have to play Solomon for these events. It should just be clear when and how you can close the street. And that is my opinion. We are government. We're not a social organization. This is government and we are responsible for people's safety, the streets, the sidewalks. We're not, and we want people to do fine with their businesses, but we can't accommodate everything that comes along. It needs to be set up so people know how to plan accordingly. Thank you.
If you're going to close the approval process, then the restriction, the limits, let's call it limits, need to not be restrictive. And you're asking for both at once. You're saying a pretty restrictive window and no approval process.
Right? That's exactly what I'm asking for.
Okay, all right,
That's it.
enough. Mr. Marshall, did you want to make a motion?
No, but it sounds like Paige has something in mind.
Okay.
So
Mr. Weber?
I think you made a good argument for increasing it to 10 hours, but I also think we don't want to get in a situation where we have a multi-day event that shuts down the street for multiple days. So I think having no 2 consecutive days at 10 hours just solves that.
And I would add, I think we do need to have a board approval process if somebody wants to make an exception, so that we don't run up against. Yes. Mr.
This is about Grand Avenue, and I think you have to be specific and say this applies to Grand Avenue, because that's what the issue is. What I've heard from the businesses is they'd like something they can plan on. So the ones that may have problems with a lot of closure, if they know in advance in a year, how many special events do we typically? That's, I think, why that provision L is in there. Provision L should say Grand Avenue should not be closed more than X number of times in any 1 year period of time. That way, businesses can plan and they can say, well, we're not going to get shut down. That's what I heard.
And that's the other thing is I was just thinking parade routes, because we do close streets for parade routes. And so this could, in its form, apply to parade routes too. But if we make it Grand Avenue, then it's very specific.
Maybe expand that to be the commercial C1 and C2 district rather than Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
You want to make a motion to that effect?
Why don't you make it?
I'll give it a shot. I'd like to make a motion that be changed that, did you say commercial, Dave?
Yeah, commercial districts. Do you want to-
Street shall not be closed more than 6 times in any 1 year.
You got a second?
A second.
Further discussion from the board?
Number 6.
Completely out of thin air.
And when you said,
Better now.
and when commercial district is C1, C2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trustee Markle, did you want?
I just wanted to, if you could repeat the motion so I could make sure I got
Sure.
the numbers right.
That commercial districts shall not be closed more than 6 times per year,
Any
Or
calendar,
just streets.
in any calendar.
calendar year. Full district streets. Okay, any comment from the public? Yes. Word.
Trying to read my name. You got
Name.
it. Okay. Name, okay. Morgan McInnes, I live on Main. I think I hear the different sides between wanting it to be very prescriptive and not wanting wiggle room, but also allowing for this to be a little bit more organic or organic enough to kind of represent the needs and wants of the public. So I'm curious if there's a middle ground between keeping the language as it's written now, but adding a clause saying that differences can be made so long as an organization meets a certain bar, as far as like if an organization can garner enough public support for a amendment to be made for that specific event. Am I making myself clear? So having a kind of tight code as it is now, but if there's enough public support for a single event to go above and beyond said code, allowing for there to be that space. So you don't have just any willy-nilly event coming up saying, hey, I want to do this, but actually proving that there's enough support behind it. Just to allow for this to be a little bit more fluid and actually like represent or reflect needs and wants of the community. That's a middle ground that I see.
All right. All right. Anything else for the public? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Prima 110 Clark. I don't really want to speak, but I do. On the street closures, just an idea I had too is I really would like it to not be based on the businesses downtown deciding if we get to close our streets or not, because I'm part of the public. And so as businesses change and go, what if they say, hey, I don't want to do charity days, like because the businesses have a different opinion. And so I'd really like to move away from letting all the businesses on Grand decide if we get to close our streets or not and who's running those businesses at that time. And the 6 days, I really feel like we should maybe 10. Closing streets are kind of cool. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
It was thin air.
All right. We have a motion and a second to the commercial. Oh, sorry, Thomas.
I just wanted to clarify, because I heard this from trustees as well, that the collection of the petition does not determine whether or not there's a street closure. It's a courtesy and information gathering for future decision making.
All right, so we have a motion and a second that the commercial district streets shall not be closed more than 6 times per calendar year.
Mayor,
Yeah,
sorry, if I may, I was just going to ask when you're saying commercial districts, are you meaning streets within the commercial zone districts?
yes.
I know there's the C1 and there's the C2, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
and I think it is proper to refer to them that way. I was just
Okay.
wanting to clarify to make sure that the language would work within the remainder of the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Clarifying our code is a good thing. Thank you.
We need to amend.
No.
Let's go up to 8 and let's call it events, not days. Because an event could be a day and a half or 2 days, so let's not.
All right, then make an amendment to your motion.
You can make an amendment to the motion that we change the 6 times to 6 to 8 events per year.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion?
I can't go with that. That's just too much. And what I want to clarify is, this is a motion for subsection L. I would still like us to discuss subsection M.
Yeah, we still need to
Yeah,
get the end.
but, so I'm just gonna say that is too open-ended.
Okay, well, yes, Mr. Markle?
Yeah, could you add that language that Nick recommended, the C1 and C2 explicit?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
it's going to be. Anything from the public on changing, amending the motion to make it 8 events per calendar year? All right, we have, yes.
Shirley Patterson, Rio Grande. I agree that that should be days, not events. Days, 6 days.
All right, so we have an amendment to the main motion to make it 8 events per calendar year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, that motion does not pass, so we're back there. All right, so we have a motion and to have C1 and C2 streets not be closed more than 6 days per calendar year. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. All right.
And there wins.
So let's look at M. Let's look at the number of hours, and I really think we need to have approval by Board of Trustees in there somewhere. And I think, in my motion, yeah, if I could make a motion, I would make it 10 hours, but
Well, I'll make that motion. I'd like to move that the street closures shall not exceed 10 hours in duration. Except on Sundays and state recognized holidays. Any closure requests falling outside these restrictions shall require review and approval by the Board of Trustees.
all right, we have a second on that.
Second.
Discussion by the board. Yes, Mr. Markle?
So what would be the limit on Sundays and holidays? If it's 10, except for Sundays and holidays, what is Sundays and holidays?
Right.
Could you make a suggestion that could help us?
You could just eliminate Sundays and holidays, say 10 hours period.
Okay. let's do that. So I'm
Amend-
gonna reword the motion.
Yes, please reword.
So I'd like to make a motion, that street closure shall not exceed 10 hours in doing. 10 hours in duration. And that we're deleting the except on Sunday, blah, blah, blah. And that the approval of the Board of Trustees is required.
So I agree with that, John, for a second.
Yeah, second.
All right, further discussion from the board? Yes,
I don't even know what this means.
it means that you can't have that street closure will be 10 hours in duration unless it comes to the Board of Trustees, in which case they can make an exception.
And what are we making an exception for?
If they want to have it closed longer,
11 hours or 12 hours?
Yeah.
But not,
13 or 24, or, yeah,
but it doesn't matter if they're gonna do 5 days in a row.
Yeah, that's my.
well, we have it only,
And
and
I don't want to be making that decision as a trustee. This is completely silent on, the only thing they could do is not do it more than 6 days in a row.
But 6 days per calendar year.
Right, but they could do it. That group, we're not talking, and, okay, so the motion that just passed is that no street can be closed more than 6 times a year. Doesn't matter who's asking.
Right.
Okay, so in this case, somebody could come in and say, I want to close this street for 6 hours, 10 hours for 6 days. And then that street can never be opened again for the rest of the year. It can't be closed again for the rest of the year. So I don't see how we're preventing people from, just a free for all.
Well, what if you said, all right, what if you said prevent?
And are you talking about M?
Yeah, I'm talking about
Prevent.
That's all right.
Yeah,
So street closures should not exceed 10 hours in duration.
prevent.
It still doesn't stop them from
No.
doing multiple days.
No.
If it's 10 hours a day, street closure should not exceed 10 hours in duration well, there wasn't. What was the motion? Did it stop at duration?
Yeah.
Period? Street closure shall not exceed 10
Administrators.
hours in duration.
County administrator approves street closure shall not exceed 10 hours in duration
Period.
per event.
Was that in the motion?
No.
No, I was suggesting that maybe we put that in the motion to address your issue.
But it's still, somebody could have it closed for
Yeah.
6 days in a row for 10 hours a day for their event.
Well, you could say 10 hours. This is for no more than 1 or 2 consecutive days, 1 or 2 consecutive days. How many days you want it? Yeah, Mr. Weber.
I'd like to amend it so that it says that street closures shall not exceed 10 hours in duration. And that should not be more than 1 day
And not more than 1 day in duration.
in duration, yes.
Okay.
And strike the approval by the board, someone.
No, that's gonna have to be another motion.
No, I'm changing them, I'm making, this is. The
All right, not more than 1 day in duration.
Someone wants to make the motion or amend it again, go for it.
Okay, in duration, and then take out the approval by the board. Okay,
So does the 1 day in duration kill off Harvest Fest?
and
For a back-to-back days, it would.
We wanna
Right,
do that?
no, this is saying that they could only close the street for 1 day. Except for the other about no more than 6 times in a year. I think we're getting too much inconsistency here. It's not clear. And
So the way I'm hearing this, I'm just gonna reflect on that, is that you have, the town administrator can approve per event that the street can be closed for 10 hours. The question that I would have is, does that mean all on 1 day, or could they do it 3 days for 3 hours each day?
oh, it's injured. Oh, that's.
Right.
So, and some events are probably like a dark skies event, might want to just be closed at night. And then I'm also reading, and I know that Mr. Weber suggested striking the other clause where the board could approve something different. That if you kept that in, that gives the flexibility for some special event for the board to say you could do it for 3 days. Am I reading that correctly? Okay.
Yeah.
I would say the wording of the motion is not clear enough. It is, first of all, yes, somebody could say, okay, I'm going to shut it for 3 hours a day for 3 days in a row. Because to me, the issue that came up with 3 days downtown was some businesses did not want to see the street closed for 3 days. And a lot of people didn't want to see it, the public didn't. And we do have to think about the businesses downtown. They do get a say in the single commercial block in Paonia. It's pretty important that it be a balance between needs and wants. So this right now, again, is so wide open. I would rescind this and let's start over.
My motion says it cannot extend beyond 1 day, so you don't have that. It's 10 hours, 1 day, you're done.
But you're also taking out board exceptions.
I am, but if you're willing, if you want to put them back in and have us vote on it, go for it. Either split the motion or amend it again.
Okay, well, Did we get a second on this, not more one day in donation and strike the board of trustees part? I don't know if we ever got a second on that.
We do, but I'll second it. I think we need to if we're. Yeah.
Anything with it? Okay, discussion from the board on the amendment, make it not more than 1 day in duration. And then strike the closure request outside these restrictions shall require review and approval by the board of trustees. See. Yes.
Me. Eric. Yeah, again, leaving something to our discretion by law gives us the option of making an exception. I know that I'm pretty sure everybody was included in correspondence that requested, some people were like, well, these guys need a variance, to the law or some sort of, special treatment. And I think that having a popularity contest is probably the wrong way to do it. But having, bringing something to the Democratic board is the best option that we have. So I think it makes sense to leave the board option in there. Regarding the rest of it, I think that there's always going to be loopholes, like if somebody wants to say, okay, yeah, we're going to have a street closure that's 1 minute long and we're going to do it for 6 days. What we need is to have an administrator who can have the wherewithal to say no, say like, no, you're not going to do a street closure for 1 minute, 6 days in a row and like eat up all the 6 days. Just be realistic about the implementation of the ordinance. And I think that 6 days, 10 to 24 hours I feel very generous. I do think that having the opportunity to do larger events is nice, but again, this is not going to, we're not talking about shutting down charity days here. We're talking about street closures. So let's keep the discussion distinct between festivals and street closures. Festivals are not necessarily street closures. Street closures are not necessarily festivals. Regarding this particular amendment to the motion, I will be voting no.
Well, Mr. Markle, would you like to split the motion and split the board of trustees part off of that motion and have a separate vote on?
What was the first part of it? Was remind me where we're at. Thank you.
Split the motion and take the board of trustees. Okay,
what was the emotion?
So the amendment to the motion is not more than 1 day in duration. And then take the whole, any closure requiring, take the whole approval by the board of trustees. And so that is all part of the amended motion. So if you want to split that part about.
Yeah, I'll move to split the 24 hours and the board input.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So we're splitting them in two. And so let's take the not more than 1 day in duration point and let's vote on it.
That's the other part of that.
Right, yeah, the 10 hours. No, we need to vote on the amendments first. So we're voting on the first amendment, which is not more than 1 day in duration. All in favor of the not more than 1 day in duration? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. Now let's take the any closure request falling outside these restrictions shall require review and approval by the board of trustees. All in favor of that?
Fine.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, that fails.
So that flexibility is now gone.
That sounds like that flexibility is now gone.
I'm sorry, was that that vote was to remove that language or to retain that language?
Okay.
Let's be clear.
The
If you voted nay, you did not want it to be able to be considered by the board of trustees. If you voted aye, you want it to be considered by the board of trustees.
Can we vote? Can we do a roll call vote then?
Sure, let's do a roll call. Amanda?
Okay. Trustee Knudsen,
Aye.
trustee Valentine,
Aye.
Trustee Smith,
Nay.
trustee Markle,
Aye, to retain.
trustee Weber,
What did you vote, Thomas?
Said aye to retain the board vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then that motion passed. All
what did
right,
trustee Weber vote?
Nay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now that motion passes. So now let's go back to the main motion. Town administrator approves street closures shall not exceed 10 hours in duration and not more than 1 day, 10 hours in duration and not more than 1 day in duration. And any closure request falling outside these restrictions shall require review and approval by the Board of Trustees. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm thinking.
I'm sorry.
Shall I read it again?
Yes.
One more time. Town administrator approves street closures shall not exceed 10 hours in duration and not more than 1 day in duration. Or 10 hours or 1 day in duration. Does that make sense? So they can't, okay, let me try one more time. Town administrator approves street closures shall not exceed 10 hours in length and not more than 1 day in duration. Yes,
Make a suggestion to word that.
please.
This is also when you can call on your incredibly great town attorney, but so Nick, correct me if you have a better way to do this, but how about the street closure cannot exceed 10 continuous hours in 1 day?
Okay, thank you.
We still would allow multiple days, so.
We'll have the other duration. So street closure shall not exceed 10 continuous hours in 1 day, nor be more than 1 day in duration.
Is there a better way to say that, Nick?
I like the language. I'm struggling with exactly how to frame the board's intent. So no one, I think stating it in a different way might help. So
Okay, one more time.
well, this is just so that I understand really, before I give the board any advice on this point. So the board would not allow a single event to extend, let's say it's a Saturday and a Sunday. So that single event could not close the street on both of those days. Is that correct? Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. So street closure shall not exceed 10 continuous hours. Nor 1 day in duration. That's the language that does work. That does work.
Okay.
I was going to suggest to the board just in general, when you're making motions, one thing you could do instead of talking about specific language, because obviously this has gotten, difficult to refer back to, you could say what your intent is and then direct the town attorney to draft language that affects that intent. And then rather than, sort of drafting on the fly here, you can just tell me what you need to see, and I can do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that the town attorney drafted.
All right, so, but we need to have the town administrator is going to approve. Yes? Yes, I'll say. So the town administrator shall approve. The town administrator, a town administrator approved street closure shall not exceed 10 hours in duration, nor.
That's why I'm trying to make a motion. Well, because we're trying to draft on the fly.
We will
Right.
see the intent, give it to Nick.
Okay, if we make a motion to do the intent, can we then have you draft the exact language and it be passed?
Yes, yeah. So I I would say you certainly can. So if you were to, is the intent of the board to potentially pass this tonight?
Yeah, it would be nice, instead of bringing it back, our
Yeah.
December.
No, that's under.
This is
that's-
ordinance.
We don't have an ordinance form.
We don't have an ordinance form. Okay, so yeah, if you draft up something for us, then I think we'll be okay, and we'll get it in ordinance form for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Yeah, so certainly I was mainly making that comment just for the future as far as so that the board's not drafting on the fly. But let's get this language nailed down. And I think what the motion was or what's being read back right now is town administrator street closures shall not exceed 10 continuous hours nor 1 day in duration.
Yes.
And then there was still already approved the any closure requests falling outside of these restrictions shall require review and approval by the Board of Trustees. Is that
Correct. Okay, I think we've got it. All right.
Mayor?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Russell.
If it's not more than 10 hours, there's no way that it could be more than 24. So those,
Right.
I think that's my confusion. So we don't need that, the extra 24.
Oh, no,
Nor 24 is
yeah, we don't
extraneous.
have, we don't have 24 in there anyway, so
Just,
it's just 1
Or,
day.
yeah, no more than 1 day. It doesn't, I mean, if it's not more than 10 hours, there's no way it could be more than a day.
Well,
but it could be the next day.
right, it could be the next day, that's the thing. So,
Preventing 2 days.
yeah, so let's see it in writing, and then if we need to hone it up at the next meeting, we can. Okay, so, I would like, well, I would suggest a 5-minute break, but I would like to ask the people sitting on here, what are you here for? Do you want to see the bag policy, or are you here for the water rate, sewer rate, and garbage rate changes? Bag policy, all right, then let me make a motion, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and do the flag policy.
Have we finished this? Yeah.
Pardon?
And a chance to comment during each topic. Is that
So you
correct?
want to comment on the,
As a member of the public, I think the word duration is confusing.
okay,
Can someone define the word duration?
like,
My understanding would be a continuous.
yeah, like, or like,
So you're confusing me by saying 10 hours duration and then 24 hours duration or 1 day duration. Why don't you say 1 calendar day? Instead of 24 or 1 day duration. As a member of the public, it would be confusing.
thank you, all right. Motion for a 5-minute break by Mr. Knudsen, second. All in favor?
Favor.
Sorry. Consented.
Aye.
Break. 5 minutes, and we'll be back at 8:22. Thank you for. We're back in session. So next item on the agenda is the flag policy recommendations. All right. Now Thomas isn't back yet, John, so this one falls in your lap. You get us, say, what you guys did on this. Lucky dog.
So Nick, certainly, correct me if I'm wrong. The context of this last rewrite and the last public information meeting was that the previous rewrite did not enumerate what sorts of flags might fly. And so on advice from the attorney, we were supposed to go back and be a little more specific. So I advised that meeting, in fact, that we were in a strange position. We had to do that enumeration, but we didn't want to go back to where we started. Back to the very square one of, this viewpoint, that viewpoint, other viewpoints. So what we did was came up with this. There are sort of two distinct factions summed up as don't and the other side do allow flying, express various groups express themselves using banners and flags. So it's so in that was the context going into this rewrite and into this noticed meeting on gathering information input.
Yeah, John. Thanks. So based on the last, I guess second to last time this came before the board, we had the part 3, I forget the subsection now, but the part that said no political statements and no what was the other part? No hate speech, I think was the other part of it. So we had a board vote to remove that language, which our attorney then indicated without that restrictive or without permissive or restrictive language, we open ourselves up to representing free speech, public speech. So because the board voted to remove restrictive language, it was thought that we could do permissive language. And the language that's in it now had been put forth a couple times in discussion in various formats. And I thought that John should have his chance to shoot a shot at it. So here it is. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Discussion from the board? Yes, Mr. Weber.
A couple of minor issues. The word city needs to be struck because we're not a statutory city, we're a town.
Yeah.
I'm also uncomfortable with people setting up their own displays, their own flags. We had that on page, you made an argument before that was a bad idea to have them up there doing that. So we need to take responsibility for that. And that would strike the part about general insurance, general liability insurance, and section on the setting it up themselves. And then the final thing is, my policy, my feeling on this policy was that we just stick with the basic flags, American flag, the Colorado flag, just stick with that. And maybe some special event flags like cherry days and that kind of stuff, but not broaden it out to include a wide range of flags, especially the State Department History and Heritage Months. You're just going to end up having conflict on it.
Okay, anything else from the board? Yes, Mr. Casey.
I was curious how this policy would impact. Remember, we had a graduation during COVID and we wanted to have pictures of the students. So school events, I think if there are school events that are a big deal, like the volleyball team's going for a state championship, or if these students have graduated and during COVID, we had student pictures up because we weren't having a public graduation. So school events, I'm wanting to know how this affects schools if they want to have banners.
Yes, Mr. Markle?
Yeah, as I read it, they would be specifically denied.
And my second question is, what about town sponsored events? The town sponsors Cherry Days. Or, no, not Cherry Days, Mountain Harvest Festival. Time out a second. When they list sponsors on the banner, it says Town of Paonia. Mountain Harvest.
Likewise.
Thomas?
Yeah, as I read it, those are also likewise denied.
No, we would have to contribute financially to them, so we do not, and so we don't on those banners.
Correct me if I'm wrong. People came in asking that we waive fees for using the park and they will call us a sponsor. I call that sponsoring an event. Okay, our name was on the banner, so I want to know how the flag policy affects town sponsored events. You're saying no. You would deny banners for town sponsored events. Town approved events in the park like BMW, Cherry Days, Mountain Harvest Festival. We've called those special events in other ordinances.
Belief is a special occasion flags. Notice events.
I just want to make sure it's clear.
Paige?
When I sent in my comments, I actually decided that we needed to talk about the street banner that's at the corner of Third and Grand. And that's the only place where these legacy events have been flying banners. So I had proposed that that be included in here to address those legacy events, but that's an aside. But I have to say that we don't want to get into ceremonial flags with a specific historic event, cause, nation, tribe, or group. I think you cannot have that in there. It is way too open-ended. We are going to get in trouble with that, and we are going to be put in a position of saying no and getting sued, doing exactly what the Supreme Court told us not to do. So in a special occasion flag or banner or display associated with an event or occasion of the nation, state, town, county, or region. You know, that probably can reasonably stay, in my opinion. But here is the thing. I feel like because these DMAA poles are we're only provided their use for town business, town purpose. So I would like us to be more restrictive on what the town purpose is. And one of the things I had proposed was town purchase holiday decorations, which we already do. Town purchase commemorative flags, and I said celebrating Paonia. Because the point of this is I think the town needs to be buying these things and be responsible for their upkeep, which is what has happened with the banners that we all voted on, or we voted on in the past. We ended up buying those banners that have the artwork. I don't know if you knew that, but it came through disbursements that we actually ended up buying them. Because if other people buy them and hang them up there, how do we prevent them from just turning into rags or, you know, just looking awful? I think anything that goes in there that's for a town purpose, the town has to either pay for. Yeah, I think we have to pay for them. Commemorative flags celebrating Paonia. I'm sorry if the high school kids won't be able to write a banner. That again, remember, we are a municipality. We are not a social club. We are here to provide services to the public, streets, sidewalks, water, sewer. We have no obligation to be the bulletin board for everything that comes along. We just can't. We just don't have the bandwidth or the staff. So I really think we have to drill this down. American flag, Colorado flag, town purchased decorations, because we've been doing Christmas decorations forever. Anyway. And like Dave said, the public cannot be putting banners, cannot be on our city streets in putting these up. All flags shall be put in place by town of Paonia employees only, because that is a huge liability to have people standing on 10-foot ladders hanging over the public sidewalk. But with that in mind, if it, depending on, I don't know what the motion is, but
There isn't.
I know, okay, but my point is, we cannot afford to be putting up banners for national events or somebody's, I'm sorry, high school graduation. I'm sorry, that's not what a municipality is for. You can put whatever you want on your personal property. There is no prohibition. You can have whatever you want. We are a city street. Thank you.
Okay, I would caution the public, please. When someone is speaking, please don't make a comment. Don't clap, don't say yay, don't make any sound, because it's disrespectful to the person who is speaking. Just be silent. You will get your turn to say something. So please, let's just be respectful for the person who is currently speaking. Thank you.
So Nick, does the ceremonial flag and commemorative flag language as it stand, in fact, open us up to lawsuits?
That, trustee, that was the primary impetus of my comments in the prior meeting. And it does, in a way that this policy is very good at the beginning in clarifying that these street poles and right of way generally is to be used for government speech. But then when you open it up to the potential of the public being able to apply for and receive a permit to place their own flags for ceremonial purposes, if somebody comes in and you allow one group in one particular viewpoint, let's use that legal term of art, then you potentially open yourself up to allowing another viewpoint, because you've blurred the line between government speech and public free expression. So that was the impetus of my comments. And I think I remember Trustee Smith making a comment about having to allow a Nazi flag. I mean, that is clearly one of the gravest examples of something the board might be faced with in that instance. So I had suggested that if there were some parameters set on what types of commemorative or ceremonial flags the board would accept as its own speech, still keeping it within the parameters and defining what constitutes government speech, then in that instance, the board could defend what it deems government speech, meaning that of the town of Paonia. But right now it's open-ended. So it just simply states commemorative, ceremonial, and those other things in the list. I'm not able to pull it up right now. But it's too open-ended right now to set those parameters. And I think the board right now could be exposed if it were to pass this policy in this way and then get one of those flags that it didn't want to hang in the right of way. I have a couple suggestions just based on what I've seen other municipalities do. Town sponsored events got brought up. That is something that a lot of municipalities will open up their light poles to town sponsored events. And in those instances, I've seen it done a lot of ways. I take the point in maintaining a banner. Of course, that is an issue. And it's also an issue having somebody go and hang the banners themselves without proper insurance if they're going to do it themselves. If the town doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, then it's probably true that the town would probably have to require those entities to have insurance, specify the type of banner, the materials, the facets, however it's hooked to the pole. There are all sorts of different things that the board could pass in this policy to make it acceptable for a member of the public to do that with the board's permission. So that's a long-winded way of saying that there are municipalities that do allow banners on light poles for town-sponsored events. Specifically defining that, Trustee Knutson brought up an interesting point. What really constitutes town sponsorship? Does that mean that the town waives permit fees? Does that mean the town kicks some money to the event? So those are all things that you'd have to consider if you wanted to set up a policy like that. With regard to, there's also parameters that you could set, like with the school district being someone that you might want to invite to use light poles as well. I'm not saying that that's direction the board's going in at this moment, but you can define by group, you can define by message, something that's supportive of Paonia's values. But those are all ways to really hone in. And I think to get us back to the original point of my advice earlier is just, what is Paonia's government speech? If you're going to open it up to the public, you have to be careful to define that.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Weber?
I agree with Paige that if we just, it was a good idea, just simply have town purchased banners or flags. That way it is government speech because we purchased it. We've authorized a disbursement for it. And we actually have control of the content. In that way, I would completely strike section B out of this because, as Nick pointed it out, that opens us up. We could have to fly everything. We're no longer government speech, we're in public speech and First Amendment issues. So if we buy it, if we own it, we've obviously approved it. And that would cover the US flag, Colorado flag, would also cover special events like Harvest Fest and the rest. We just purchased those banners and all.
Was that a motion, Dave?
No, actually, I wasn't ready for a motion yet. I'm still trying to solicit some opinion. We haven't thrashed this as bad as we did the previous one.
Yeah, my concern is that, that's town expense. We're gonna start purchasing banners for BMW days and cherry days and all the rest of that. So that doesn't seem like a peaceful idea in the States. Unless we use it as sponsorship for that event, that's our sponsorship for it. So it would be a town sponsored event, so that, we would buy your banner. And that's our kick-in for the event.
We don't have that many legacy events.
No, I think we've got 5,
Yeah,
4.
not talking about big expense.
Well,
But that way we control content. Control.
say no.
Yeah.
Hey, please, no comments from the public until your time comes.
Any more comment on that?
Yeah,
I was gonna suggest an option.
yeah.
I think the purchased part, you could switch to town owned. And where you have these repeated events like Harvest Festival and Cherry Festival, that those banners could be purchased and given to the town to own and control. So you don't have, doesn't mean that you have to buy them, but you're gonna own them.
So they can be donated then.
Right, so the festival organizers could gather the money to buy them and turn them over to the town, then you can hang them every year and make sure that they come in.
And they could just buy the updates. They have to change every year. And that way, like the wine festivals and that kind of stuff can still hang their banners as well.
It'd be our banners.
At that point, they would be our banners, yes. They would be
I like that.
donated to- Yeah,
So you want a motion out of this?
yeah.
Okay, make a motion to strike section B. And replace it with lines of town owned banners or flags.
So repeat that second part, B. Replace with-
Strike section B
Right,
and replace it with flying. That the town can fly town owned flags and banners.
okay.
We'll let the attorney turn that into English.
Yeah.
Or actually, I guess legalese is a name, but
Banners and flags, or just banners?
flags and banners.
All right, do we have a second on that?
Second.
All right, further discussion from the board? All right, seeing
I
none.
had something to say.
Yeah, I do.
All right, go Dave.
In the interest of Edward Abbey throwing a monkey wrench into everything. There would be nothing to prevent a group of citizens to come to us and say, we want these banners and we're gonna pay for them, we're gonna give them to you. And now we're in a position, I just want to be clear about what the ramifications of this are. Now, as a board, we're gonna have to say to that group, well, we don't really like your message. So, maybe we're not gonna do that. Then another group comes and says, well, we want to donate those. And we'll pay for them and everything, and they can become town owned. So again, we as a board are put in a position of having to decide whether this banner goes up or that banner goes up. And here comes the lawsuits.
So how would you tighten that?
In the interest of simplicity, which I hate to go back to because I've kind of been against this. Frankly, personally, I was proud of Paonia to see the pride flags go up. I thought that was a neat thing when Joe and I came into town and saw them first time. But, there's so much controversy generated by it. The last thing I want to see is a lot of controversy in the community. That's part of the reason we have so many people in the room tonight. And, going back to, hey, just the American flag, the flag. No, I'm torn on it because I just want to keep us out of that controversy that's so divisive.
What if we gave it back to streets to review with Nick? Section by section.
You guys have beat this pretty
Yeah, Thomas?
Could you repeat the motion?
Yeah,
It's not a motion.
Oh, yeah, there is. We have a motion. and a second.
Sorry, you're
So
right.
we have a motion to strike section B and replace with town can fly, town-owned banners and flags.
Okay, so section B has some language inside of it that dictates where those flags can be flown. Hang on. Yeah, so the definition of street flag is the part where we talk about above, and I thought that this language I changed in the latest draft. Above town street right of way. I thought I borrowed what Paige wrote, the part over 3rd Street, 3rd and Grand, but it didn't make it in here. But I think without that, it's somewhat nebulous. So you might want to try and find a way to put that in there, or leave it out for now and come back to it. But I don't think coming back to streets again is going to be productive. The last meeting was there were basically no new ideas were presented. So I don't know how much we could get out of that. And it seems like there was one other point that I wanted to say, but I forget what it was.
Yes.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, just one point of clarification for me. I think this list under it's section B, and then you go all the way down, and then the last section 2 there. It lists all these different flags. I don't have an issue with having these flags listed here. I think the legal issue really arises when the town is allowing groups to submit these flags for approval by the board to be hung. If the board approves one viewpoint and doesn't approve the other, if a court were to determine that the town has opened this up to public expressions of free speech rather than government speech by virtue of the board allowing these flags to be submitted to it for potential approval or denial, that's the issue. If the town is going to hang these flags itself, the town wants to hang that gay pride flag or, anything like that, that is totally fine. The town can do that. It can adopt that as government speech. But what happens is, I think in the approval process itself is where the board has the potential to run afoul of someone's First Amendment rights. So if the town wants to leave in that enumerated list of things that it might potentially want to hang, as far as special occasions, ceremonial, commemorative flags, that's all fine and good. It's just when you start opening that up to the public. So that's why I had suggested maybe refining the opening up to the public list to those that are sponsored by the town. But the town can still hang what it wants. Does that make sense?
Yes. There are nodding heads down here. It's one of them, but yeah, there are some nodding heads.
I'll tell you why. I'm thinking that for government speech, government flags, that's one of the proposals I'm hearing. And there's a lot of private sector businesses here in town, and they can fly in their private sector windows whatever flag they want. So maybe that's the way to leave it. Like when it comes to government stuff, it's the government flags and that's it. And then if the schools want to organize businesses to fly school things about the volleyball team, or if the pride flag comes up again in a month, businesses can be asked to fly those flags, like several businesses in town did indeed fly those flags in their windows besides on the flagpoles. So maybe that's the way to do it, is leave it to the private sector to decide what flags they want to fly. If citizens want to go out and get those businesses to commemorate that event, they can. But the thing that gets really dicey is when we as a board have to start deciding which flags we're going to let and which flags we aren't. That's where we run into trouble. So I guess I'm going all the way back to like American flags, Colorado flags, and the town of Paonia. If we ever adopt a flag, we fly that too.
So you come back to my original motion.
Yes, exactly.
Anything else for the board? Yes, Dave?
Well, I just wanted to, one thing I think we still want to be able to do is put up town purchase holiday decorations, which are not flags. So I just don't want to see us limiting it to flags to reduce. And here is what I had proposed. Town purchase holiday decorations, town purchase commemorative flags celebrating Paonia. I mean, that's government speech. And we leave it at that. And of course, we still have the American flag and the Colorado flag in the beginning of this proposed policy. But I agree. I think to do anything other than that, we are going to be going down a big slippery slope.
Yeah, I agree with Rachel.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second. Yeah. Yes, Thomas?
Yeah, can we split the motion into remove part B
Yes,
and the replace?
sure. Well, then let's deal with, we have a lot of people out here who want to speak. So I tell you what, why don't we give the public a chance to speak, and then we'll split the motion and do strike section B, and then we'll do town flag, town owned banners and flags, okay? All right, here's your chance. Oh.
Hi, my name is Paul.
Okay, I don't know, everybody, 3 minutes. I'm timing.
All right. Tell me when.
Go.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having this discussion, and then also John and Thomas. I appreciate you guys facilitating the Flag and Street Committee meetings. Spend a lot of time researching many different policies. Spend a lot of time coming together as a community and having these discussions at all these meetings. I don't know how many hours that we've had discussions. And I want to say that through those discussions, a lot of people were able to speak their opinions and give and everyone was heard. And I think that was super important, and I just kind of applaud that whole effort. And through all of that time and effort, I feel like we came up with a really strong policy. And the policy that you guys have in front of you, it's taken from many different policies that we've looked at, like San Jose, that was even mentioned last week, or last time that there was a meeting, and there's other ones too. So really, we're not like inventing our own policy. We're taking what other cities have done. And so, and towns and communities. And so, so just in reference to that and this policy, also the attorney reviewed the policy, gave suggestions, and based on last week's street and flag committee meeting, we've made a few changes. And I think that it's pretty strong. So I also just want to appreciate too that, you know, we did define what government speech was in the B2B. And I feel like it aligns with a lot of federal sites, national parks, just like the National Heritage Months. And there's a lot of towns, communities, cities around the nation, around the world that celebrates some of these heritage celebrations. And I think that Paonia should be no different. And I think it's awesome that we were able to do it this last year, and I'm excited to be able to do that in the future. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say, but thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address the board? Yeah. All right, I'm sorry, ma'am, not right now. Yes.
Hi, Amy Porter, Oak Avenue. It sounds like, given what our attorney is suggesting, the real danger in this policy is in section B, all of one, where he said where a town member would be presenting a flag for you to review. So it sounds like, from my understanding, if we just eliminated that, that would eliminate all worries for potential legal problems in our future. That's what it sounds like. So why don't we just nix that and include the rest? I really believe in section 3 and B, and I think it's really helpful because it is government language. It's from our State Department, which is, you know, part of our federal government. And so it's not you guys deciding, it's already been decided by our country. And so I don't think it would be on you. The town wouldn't be, you know, people who are in disagreement wouldn't be looking at you, that they would be looking at that authority, which is our national government. And I also just wanted to include, I'm hearing comments about how, you know, we're just a municipality. And I would like to believe that Paonia is more than that. I would like to believe that Paonia wants to be more than that. Like, we want to be special, and that we see and we honor and we reflect our community. And we need to have room for that, because right now in Colorado Springs, on Colorado Springs .gov on their website, it says a 25-foot historic pride flag will be displayed on the exterior of Colorado Springs City Hall. It gives the address. A ceremony is set for 10 a.m. Wednesday, November 23rd. The flag, known as Section 93 of the C2C flag, is on loan to Colorado Springs from the Sacred Cloth Project as a gesture of love, solidarity, and healing in the wake of the Club Q shootings, in which 5 people were killed and 18 were injured. I want to be able to honor and to express what needs to be said. And I want our town to be able to do that. So I'm asking you to please allow us to do that, because I think we should be proud of that and be honored and not back away from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address it? Yes, sir.
Art Eller, Salmon Wade Road. I would like to point out that I think
Some of the board members are very quick to allow religious decorations. I feel like this brings up the same type of issues. Religious decorations have been allowed in town for many years. There's supposed to be a separation of church and state. I feel like the language in 2B, the State Department's heritage language, helps to heal in some ways the wounds that have been foisted on certain, what would we call it, underserved populations. I know that I've had many friends in small town communities that fall into some of these minorities. Their rights are infringed quite regularly. So I also am in favor of having flags at the very least that are specifically allowed in the language under 3B as a minimum. And if those are not allowed, I am specifically against any religious decorations of any sort being allowed at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Arlene Nierenberger, Lamborn Mesa Road. I'd like to address the repetition I've heard before, separation of church and state, that is not in the Constitution. The founders' intent was to not have a state controlled by a religion. That in the founding era, different states were known for a religion, like Maryland was Catholic, and they all came together to establish this country. And their point in making that statement in the Constitution was to not have government dictate what religion each state was to celebrate. That was how it was supposed to be separated. So that comment about separation of church is not valid if you know history. And as late as John Kennedy, in his speech, reiterated how God was a part of our country. And if you look at our money, it says, "In God we trust." Okay, and as far as religious decorations, I understand, I've been here like 18 years or something. I don't remember any town-sponsored religious decorations, am I correct?
I don't think there are.
Okay, so that statement also is false. And I would like to know the definition of heritage flag. It's totally Greek to me. What is a heritage flag? And I think Mrs. Smith was on board. The purpose of government is general welfare and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address the board? Yes.
Morgan McInnes, Main Avenue. I agree. The purpose of government is to promote general welfare and safety. And that's actually exactly what we're trying to do. So I would really like to believe that I live in a community that is here to help support its underrepresented communities and its most vulnerable communities. So I think we live in Paonia because we are a very small kind of island that is different from the surrounding area, right? I think that's why a lot of us came here. And in order to be different, in order to kind of maintain that identity, we are actually going to have to fight for it. And I think your comment along the lines of controversy is interesting because flags that are flown do not create controversy. They actually just expose what's already there. And so not allowing this expression doesn't actually allow us to see what lives in our community and talk about it and work through it and actually come to some sort of resolution and healing. So if we limit our ability to actually express our ideas with one another, it limits our ability to actually live next to one another. And I think the more that we as a city or a town and community stay silent, the more that the surrounding prevailing ideas about who we are as a town start to take over. And so I think if we really came here because we are different and we came here because we want to maintain that difference, we really have to actually stand up for some of these core values of the town. And if we don't, then they're just going to go. And Paonia will become like Hotchkiss and Somerset and all the kind of communities around us. And I actually think that if and or when it does, that's going to be really sad. We will have lost the town that we all moved to. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Who else? Yeah.
Patterson, Rio Grande. I think this country was built on freedom to do what you want to do in your own space with your own patriots or whatever it is. It wasn't built on what can government give me? What can government do for me? What rights does government protect for me that I'm not protecting for myself? People are free in this country, in this state, in this county, in this town to do things in private. Raise money, raise funds, garner support of private businesses, peoples, whatever you want to do. There's plenty there. There's more there, resources, than there are in this government, which they've been telling you. We are limited here. We can't do everything for everybody. We're not made to do everything for everybody. So keep it simple, stupid.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
My name is Dawn Overy, and I live just outside the city limits on Lamber Mesa. And I think you need to be very careful about flying flags. Government flags, fine, but when you get into special groups, flags, you need to be very careful, as your attorney said. If you favor one group over another group, you're getting into a dangerous place. And there's nothing wrong with anybody flying any flag they want to fly on their own personal property. If a business in town wants to fly a flag in their business window, that's fine. But when you start flying down Main Street on public property, then that's when it gets dicey. So I would encourage you to just stick with the American flag, the Colorado flag, and perhaps the town of Paonia flag, and keep it strictly to government and don't get into personal individual speech.
Thank you. I saw Ben and Ben here.
I'm Keely. I also live just outside of town at Lamborn Mesa. I just want to echo that I super appreciate all of the thought and the community effort and town effort that has gone into this. There's been many hours, as someone mentioned. This is the iteration of several different versions and a lot of passion and a lot of input from various folks. And I just want to echo what some others have said, that it really seems like the sticky issue in terms of legal issues here is B1 and B2. And I think that that's an easy thing that the board could move to strike. But I'd really like to echo my support for B3 specifically. Morgan, who was just up a few folks ago, I'm not going to say it as well as he did, but I mean, Paonia is a welcoming place. It's why I live here. It's why I know many, many people live here. I think that something like a flag representing a Heritage Month, which is defined on the State Department's website, really speaks to representing, as others have said, those that are underrepresented in everyday life. And I think it's extremely important. I want to be proud of the place that I live, and that would make me very proud to live here. I was really proud last June to see those rainbow flags. And I think that Christmas decorations are actually a perfect example. Many people do not celebrate Christmas. However, folks are able to appreciate the light, the town lit up at night in the winter. It's beautiful. And I would like to believe that eventually our town can get to a place where everyone can appreciate other cultures being celebrated as well. So I just want to echo what a lot of other folks have said. I really would like to encourage the board to not just go with what maybe feels like the easy option here and only accept American flags, Colorado flags. This is following precedent from many other governments, including the White House, state of Colorado, et cetera. Many towns, happy to share. I know you all have many examples from different iterations, but we have several examples where specifically heritage months are included. And so I just want to, encourage folks to vote, towards the public input that has really gone into this process and not scrap it at the last minute just because it's complicated.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello. My name is Tori Swift. I live on Lamborn Mesa Road. I just want to also reiterate what people have been saying, that I think that there's a lot of stability in this that's been backed up by the attorney, and I just feel like it'd be a huge missed opportunity for our town to not adopt something that had so many voices put into it and had so much time invested in it, and to really embrace this policy of acceptance and inclusion and celebration that I think we all really embody. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Prima. I live on Clark Street again. I've been here 22 years now. And I feel like if you go and you ask for a committee, and I think Thomas ran a very good committee. He opened it up. I went to some of those meetings. I felt like everybody was being heard. And there's been time and work put into what's before you that has come from the community. And I support this flag policy 100% because I saw what went into it and all the effort. And I feel like to just throw that away today would be a total shame, because our people are asking for it, and everybody could have come and put input, and it's there. And so I love this flag policy. I like Christmas decorations, and I really like street festivals. So I really hope you consider that you did put it to a committee and this is what they came up with. And it's not just what's happening tonight, it's what's happening in that room and all the hours that went into it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Kristen. I live on Orchard Ave. And I just want to encourage the board to adopt section 3B as government speech. For the fact that has been brought up in other meetings by other people, that heritage months were established by the State Department to acknowledge the struggle of groups of people within this country, so that the American flag can represent them as well. So just want to encourage the board to see it that way and choose to adopt section 3B as government speech in support of those groups and the struggle that they have.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Okay. Yeah.
My name is Luna Anna, 29 Pan Am. I don't want to take a ton more of your time, but I just want to echo what many folks here have said and say that I support section B3. There's plenty of precedent, plenty of other municipalities that have adopted this, including the federal government. I don't think that there's a need to be fearful here. I think there's a need to be brave and to adopt, B3.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia Michelson. I live on Orchard Avenue. And I have been part of this process from the beginning. I was part of putting the flags up in June. And I would really like to encourage you all to view the Heritage Months. I would like to answer your question about the Heritage Months. Heritage Months were designated for bringing underrepresented people into the light so that we can have more acceptance, more understanding, and more care towards these populations. And so I think that it's really important for us as a community to show our support for communities that are not normally represented, to be able to have a time to shine. And that's why the Heritage Months have been created. To be clear, there's the Secretary of State has Black History Month in February, Women's History Month in March, Arab American History Month in April and May, Asian American and Pacific Month in May, Military Appreciation Month in May too, I think, and then the LGBTQ month in June, Caribbean African Heritage Month, July, Immigrants, August, and then Hispanic Heritage in September. And then Native American Heritage actually isn't on this list, but that's often in November. I think that it's really important for us to move away from this popular, like, yes, the mass culture is fine, American flags are fine, Christmas decorations, there's a little bias there. You have to admit. If it's like, okay, we're going to celebrate Christmas, but we're not going to put up a Kwanzaa and a menorah for Hanukkah, there's a bias there being represented. And so let's just say, if we can have that, let's have a little bit more. I mean, it's just not fair to say, oh yeah, we're gonna have American flags, which to some people is not a sign of pride. Some people are really upset about American flag these days. Some people hang those flags upside down because this country is in distress. And part of the reason this country is in distress is because everybody is not included. And so if we can include the Heritage Days, then we are starting to take a little bit of that distress away and let more people be seen, heard, and understood in our community. And that's really what I want here. So I know people don't always get what we want, but I just want to speak out for that. So thank you all for your consideration.
Anyone else? Yeah. No, ma'am, only once. You only get a speak once. Yes. What the heck?
It's true. Once again, I do not live in town, but I own a business in town, but yet I can't vote in town, but that's a different topic for a different. I feel like if we do not incorporate Section B, we're caving into hate groups. I remember coming to the subcommittee meeting last Monday, was asked to come there with John Valentine. And I listened to everybody's inputs, and it was, quite, I've never been to a subcommittee meeting before, and a lot of inputs were good from everybody. This is how the street closure affected me. This is how this flag, this is what we think. And Thomas Markle said, if I could just write in here, no Nazi flags, that would be great. But isn't that like a given? I feel like if we're not accepting this, we're on the other side. We're saying, okay, we're just going to do this just to be safe so we don't offend the haters. I'm sick and tired of protecting the haters. I really am. If we stand up and fly the rainbow flag and people that are, I don't like that because it's against my beliefs. Well, I get offended when I see the manger on top of the hill when I'm driving on public streets because I'm not a Christian.
It's not covered.
Excuse me, there is no comment.
I'm just saying, but I'm on a cheap street. I'm about it, but I'm not going to come here and say, take it down. I mean, it's, I understand that, but I have to look at it every time I'm driving on a public street. Whatever. I mean, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't hate Christians. I'm not going to say that because it makes me feel weird to see that. It's just, if we don't allow opening up our town to accepting, celebrating love and togetherness and inclusiveness, then we're caving into hate. That's just how I see it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ben Lehman, business owner on Grand Avenue. I do reside outside of town right now. My heart's really sensitive right now, so I hope I can be particular. I want us to consider what the flags are that we are agreeing can be displayed. And I think they're representations of a collective identity. And I believe that I want to live in a town and I want to advocate for an openness so that the collective identity of the people who live in an area in a town can be expressed. So I'm for leaving space for flags that are not the ones that have been discussed to be hung up so that the collective identity and self-expression of the members of this town, of the people who make it up, the real people, not the like an imagined community, this abstract entity that is the municipality, but the actual people for whom the municipality exists to serve. That's what I'm advocating for. I obviously am into self-expression and I want to be able to make sure we have a space where people can do that. So to restrict just to a few things, I don't think is indicative of a community that is for freedom. That's as articulate as I can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we have a motion on the table to strike section B.
Can we split that?
We did. We split it into strike section B, and then the second part was town can fly, town owned banners and flags.
There was no specific motion or second to split, but I.
Yeah, Thomas. Yeah.
Did you do a formal motion, Thomas?
I did move, but it was deferred until after.
No, you did move, and we were going to vote on it after public
Yeah,
comment.
I didn't hear a second.
All right, so.
I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion to strike section B. Motion and second.
Can we have board comment before we vote?
Sure. Thomas?
Yeah, thanks. So I heard a lot of comments regarding well, it was quite a bit of things, but in order to make sure that the distinction is clear, that town operations and the community, while optimally would be completely reflective of each other, they're not. And I think that while we can work to make sure that they become that way, in this instance, having done the bulk of the work on this process, I'm gonna vote to strike B for now, because based on our attorney's input, the language is still tricky and it's still open to a lot of interpretation. So just to get something forward, if possible, I'm going to be voting to strike B and then continue to work to create better language and reintroduce it at a later date.
Board comment?
I amend that to strike B except for section 3.
You sure can.
Then I so that.
Okay, so we have. All right. So we have an amendment to the motion to strike B except for section 3. We have a second on that. Any further discussion from the board on that? All right, I think we have lots of opinion on the post for that. So all in favor of amending the strike section B motion to include
Not to include.
not to include,
Not to get rid of.
not to get rid of the section
3.
3. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nay. Okay, Thomas?
Sorry, I'm trying to read it. How I would read there. I vote nay. No.
It's the following flags may be recognized by the town of expression. It's that bottom section under the.
Right. Yeah.
All the different flags.
Yeah, but it strikes all kinds of stuff that is important.
So do you vote aye or nay
I
on?
vote nay. I vote nay.
So that means that we are not, you are striking that.
I vote to keep section. I want to strike all of B.
You want to strike all these? Okay, that motion fails.
If you can, yeah, if you can state the
So
motion
that
clearly, I
amendment
can vote
fails.
for it
For
or
that-
against it.
Okay, so we're back to just strike section B. All in favor of striking section B?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. So now we have the second part of the motion, which is the town can fly town-owned banners and flags. Further discussion from the board? All right, anything from the public? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Town can fly town-owned banners and flags. So who voted nay?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, that motion fails. All right. So then we have, we're going to adopt, then we are adopting the policy, which is basically part A. All in favor of adopting flag policy as amended?
It wasn't a motion for that.
Well, okay, then.
It's not an ordinance form, so this has to come back.
Well, at
This
this
is a
point, it's
resolution.
not coming back in, that's a resolution, it's not really ordinance. Policy recommendation, what it is. So it's not gonna come back on the December 13th meeting, I guarantee it. Probably street closure change is probably not gonna come back on the 13th, because we're going to have the agenda. It's gonna be after the first of the year.
Yeah, but it's still not in proper form for resolution. Correct.
Right.
So we've got the content of it, we just have to rubber stamp this.
Well, and actually, we can pass it and then have it just put into proper form. Yeah.
Okay, so it needs a motion and American.
Got it.
So I make a motion that we adopt the flag policy as amended.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Close.
Good comment. Aye.
All right, that motion passes. All right, let's move on to new business appointment of the tree board. All right, we are at 9:24. We have some stuff we have got to get done. I think we should extend the meeting.
I make a motion that we extend the meeting to 9:45.
You have a second? On favor?
Aye.
All right.
It is.
Okay.
I agree with you.
All right, appointment to the tree board.
Well, we don't make good decisions after.
I know.
We don't, and we're not gonna get all the way through this, so what's critical?
Critical is we have to do the, well, we need to cancel the meeting in December.
Second meeting.
Yeah, that's most.
So, well, and no, and we also need to do the water rate change. You have to do the rate change.
Yeah, actually, the two most important ones there are sewer and garbage. Sewer
I don't
just
know.
has to be- It's. The water. Right, let me finish. Water rates that are in there are kind of temporary, because we still don't have a water for. Well, so. I'm gonna have to be changed again early next year.
I would let them put that in Cindy's work. Ms. Jones?
I'm gonna recommend you do what you do best.
Mr. Pearson?
Aren't we having a special meeting next week?
That's
very.
Did we add these in though to the RCAC sewer?
Yes.
Could we just add these into the special meeting with the RCAC report? Who do that?
It makes sense to listen to what they has to say about the sewer before we punch it down anyways.
Okay.
So why don't we just move those over to next week?
Continuance to the special meeting.
Yeah.
This work session, the special meeting.
We can still make decisions at a special. Meeting. All right.
I can do tree board in 47 seconds or less.
Okay, but I have also. There is an amendment to the, I have given you an updated mayor's report. There's a grant on there that is for the planning grant on there for $30,000 for the master plan. It is ready to go. All I have to do is email it to Dana Levesque. I would like the board's permission to go ahead and send that planning grant.
To explain what you mean, what, and we already have a RFP out for
Right.
our comprehensive plan. What is
Yeah,
this?
this is for that to pay, partially pay for that comprehensive.
Oh, okay.
So I would like the board's permission to go ahead and submit that. Okay.
You can get us money.
Yeah.
And we have, that's targeted money to go to that
Targeted.
market specifically for them. New businesses.
The board, we said we want staff time.
Right.
2 hours, yeah.
I think we should be clear and get that on the tape. You know, we should not just say, go ahead and do it. We should say specifically how much staff time, what's the matching amount? What were the other things we asked for? So explain that further.
All right, it is, the matching amount is dollar for dollar. The maximum amount we can ask for is 25,000. We already have the money in our capital improvement fund, so we have the money to match it. There is nothing for staff to do basically, except to give the final figure of how much money they're paying out.
I'm
So
not trying to be about this.
no, it's there, and if you do it anytime, as soon as you say yes, I will go home and hit the send button to Dana Levesque, it'll be done.
I think the mayor being the head of the executive branch really has control of staff time. So.
So it's just a matter of managing, well, once we get it, just managing it, keeping the funding straight.
It's just, you know, Cindy will write a check, and that's that, I mean, that's how long does it take her to punch in the numbers to write?
Well, let me ask this question though. We are gonna get 25,000, but we have to match 25,000?
Yeah. We have we have more
So
than
we
that.
have 70,000 set aside for the MRP, right?
Well, not really. We have other things set aside in that there is no
For the master
specific,
plan?
there's no specific amount. Of
What?
set aside. Well, there was 70,000
Yeah.
last year,
Mhm.
and there has not been a specific amount set aside. We basically, Cindy and I went through it and said, well, maybe 30,000.
So
So
I'm just saying, if they're giving us 25,000, we have to give them 25,000? Don't we come
we
out?
match 25,000, so the maximum is 50,000.
But it goes to that project.
It goes to
Gotcha.
that.
Okay, so we would conceivably have maybe, I'm gonna say it's 50,000 set aside. We would
Yeah.
conceivably have 75,000.
Yeah, yes. Or, you know, we could match it more. Yeah, we can put more. All right, you have 48 seconds. Go, John.
We made the serendipitous discovery that we have 4 openings, not 3. We posted these, we got 4 applicants. They're all very strong. Greg Thompson, Greg Pottinger, who's a returnee, Tom Wells, Janet Ojek. Their qualifications are listed in the packet.
Is John in here too?
What's that?
Is it John in?
Who?
John, who's the 4th one? I'm sorry.
Greg Thompson, Greg Pottinger, Tom Wells, and Janet Ojek.
Oh, Jan.
So I move that we accept them for the position.
Okay, discussion?
Is Janet in here? I just didn't have to. see Janet. Oh, thank you. I did not see her.
And she's also with me on.
Oh.
I know.
Oh.
We dragged him out. That's pretty good.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All in favor? Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passed.
We'll volunteer.
I adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Mary. The council.
Huh?
Yeah. We were gonna. Did you go?
Did you vote on this? Oh, yeah, we did. Good John McNay. Okay.
What about the cancellation? Can we get this in?
So the appointment to the tree board, so.
Excuse me, Mayor,
Wait.
point of
Yeah.
order.
Yes.
Thank you. What are we talking about? You just took a vote. Somebody made a motion, took a vote, took 10 seconds. Could you slow down? Get organized?
It was the
Please.
appointment to the tree board.
Yeah, I had questions about the appointment to the tree board. You didn't ask for board input.
Okay, please ask your question.
Okay, how many positions are open?
You have questions, Mr. Marco?
Yeah, sorry, how many positions are open?
Said
4.
Thank you. That makes more sense now. If you could, it's really difficult to hear when there are more than one person speaking on Zoom here. If you guys could follow procedure so that one person speaks at one time, it would really help me to understand what's going on.
Okay, so now we're at the cancellation of the second meeting in December.
It's tradition. I make a motion to cancel the second meeting in December.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Discussion from the board?
Are we separating church and state?
No, we're having a vacation day.
It's a bye week.
Second.
Yeah. Anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Next, town closure request. It is in the packet as to what you usually do.
Again, it's tradition, make a motion to approve the town hall closure.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nay?
Aye.
Okay. So we're moving all the water rates, all the rate changes to the RCAC meeting next Tuesday. Anybody want to do committee reports?
Actually, finance, anything, pay the bill. That was it.
We submitted ours in writing.
Yep, and I read those. That was good.
So
Personnel?
oh, yes, yeah, let's talk strictly about personnel. Yeah. You want to talk about the interims?
Sure. We had made contact with Laura Bauer about doing interim clerk work. And we sort of held back on that because we didn't know how necessary that would be. So a couple of pieces of information. It's statutory requirement that we do have a clerk. We assessed the jobs to be done and what's getting done and what's not getting done. And I did, Leslie did and the staff. And what we heard was there are some jobs not getting done, some work not getting done. But in particular, we need a person with a lot of knowledge and experience to consult with so that the staff can call them and get opinions on certain things. So the open question then becomes, would Laura Bauer be willing to do a sort of an unusual and kind of limited contractor with us? And that's basically just, question answer consulting kind of stuff. But that's what we need. And there does appear from all the information we've gotten, a reason to at least approach Laura and use her experience, knowledge, and talents, probably on a limited basis. And it would be remote. There's no need to have her come here, as what I understand it. Is that correct, Leslie? Yeah. I don't think so.
So Leslie, how much time do you think we need?
I don't know. My point being that I don't know that you need someone to come in and work hours in the office. You need someone on call with the expertise and the experience to fill in the gaps. And, I think what I understand is that you don't have a retention policy. You probably need a retention policy. I would not recommend to you that you just adopt the state retention policy. You need a clerk that's got experience to say, yes, this is fine for you. No, change this part. It's just an important role to have someone with an experience on call.
But wouldn't it be okay to let that go until we get a new town administrator and then deal with that at that point? Something big as a retention policy?
Well, I'm using that as an example. My concern is I'm not a clerk.
Right.
I know that you've had a mixed clerk administrator. I am not a clerk. I cannot answer questions on liquor licenses. I don't know anything about liquor licenses. You need to have somebody available for your staff to call if they get stuck on something that's unusual, or they just need some advice on how to proceed on some sort of notice that's unusual or something. We need to have somebody on call. And I think all you're going to be doing is paying them hourly for the time that you consult with them. And then the interim, you're supposed to have an appointment of a town clerk as statutory town. So it doesn't have to be her, it can be Amanda. You just need to make that appointment and. Yeah, that's a requirement for statutory. You don't have an appointment for an administrator, but you do have one for clerk and treasurer. Etc.
So we probably need to do that at the next
Yeah.
meeting, just to appoint the two.
So probably would be worthwhile to talk to Laura. Find out if she can do that. No.
Oh,
That's to you. I don't think you have to appoint Laura as your town clerk.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant just to be a consultant.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
She's available and that's what she does. And I don't know Laura, but I know Judy Egbert and I know she recommended her and Judy is very good. And so she would not recommend someone to you that she didn't think was.
Two towns in Delaware County who volunteered to allow their clerk to be that very same person for us. And that's Delta and that's Crawford.
and I already used Delta Clerk today. To determine
Okay, that's up to you. I just, my experience, I don't know how much time they have available and if they're available, for what might come up and if that's something that you want to do. I just want to emphasize that we can't just leave this
right.
undiscussed and without resources and give Amanda and Sam permission to call her.
Yeah, well, they should, shouldn't they? Just be able to call them when they need to.
Call who?
Delta.
The town administrator of Delta said, anytime you need Jolene's expertise. When the one Delta County meeting was happening last week, I sat next to Callie from Crawford. She says, hey, you guys need any help, give us a call. And so both those towns are on board.
That's right. And it only took, when I called Elise today, it took just 5 minutes to walk through the whole thing and get it all straightened out.
That's how we know it wasn't posted properly.
Right, exactly. So that was just a slam
So
dunk.
if you have that formalized, that's fine.
Yeah.
But does Amanda know? Can Amanda call?
Sure,
Either one?
absolutely.
Does she know that she can call?
There's a point here about formalization.
Yeah, exactly. And I think letting Amanda know.
What I've noticed, I'm just gonna tell you that sometimes the dots has not been connected between staff and the elected officials.
Yeah.
And so that's why, because there's a lot of times the staff is left in the dark and then you're asked, did you do this? Well, nobody was, so I'm trying to connect the dots on this one because it's important.
Okay.
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 Yeah.
All right. Amanda, you should call and tell them Cedar Ridge for help. But yeah, we'll make sure.
Did she hear that?
She's there thinking, no.
I know.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
That's what she is. So, and I think that's all great, but it's just that you may not get immediate answers. And if it's an emergency, there was that other woman, Goldman, who has that service. That could be a third to call if you have a question that you can't get an immediate answer from. Or the listserv, is Amanda on the listserv?
Amanda, are you on the list, sir?
Yes, I believe so. I've used them for liquor questions.
Has that felt satisfactory? Like you got what you needed in a timely way?
Yeah, so they do send a lot of information, a lot of the times, but I go straight to the liquor enforcement and they're helpful as well. But I use both of them, if that makes any sense.
So if I may, can I just ask you another question? Are you comfortable with liquor licensing, that you have the support you need to answer things that have a time crunch, that are time sensitive?
Yes, because my go-to is the liquor enforcement. I email them and they get back to me, or I call the guy from Grand Junction and he gets back to me, or, I have 3. So it's the guy from the Grand Junction, which is our liquor enforcement jurisdiction for Paunia, and the liquor enforcement itself, and the clerk serve.
Okay, thank you. Just to me, that's the most important thing. If you feel like you're getting the answers you need, maybe we're good.
Saw something about the recreational marijuana stores too, and there's some follow-up that has to be done on that, I think, when we allowed them. So I just want to make sure we don't have expertise in either one of those towns about recreational.
We do, it's here. Absolutely.
But they didn't volunteer. So we don't have Hotchkiss, and neither one of them have Hotchkiss.
Right. That's